Hi, it's Patricia Steere, and welcome to Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes episode number 5. And this one's going to be very interesting. Of course, flat Earth is going to be one of the main topics, but also we're going to be talking with a man who's not only a flat earther, he is an author, he is at the moment a fruitarian, he knows a lot about magnetic motors and urine therapy and pretty much the way our society has well, people think it's evolved to what it is today, but somewhat devolved. And we probably should be living in a society where we're farming and growing our own things and bartering with others. And maybe that's where we're going to be heading at sometime in the not too distant future. So with me now is allegedly Dave. It's Dave, and welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here too. Well, I want to find out a little bit about your backstory because I think it's very important to what you are doing today. I know you were at one point in the world of materialism, in banking, and your whole life turned around. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were doing at first?
Okay, well, yes, I was deep inside the matrix. I was a computer programmer on Wall Street, and yeah, I had the big house, the flash car, and you know, a whole room full of toys, and you know, more money than I knew what to do with. And you know, I started getting my midlife crisis. You know, I got to this point where all supposed to be aiming for, and there was nothing there. Kind of felt empty. And around just before this, 9/11 happened. And I basically escaped death, basically. Not really. I got out of there a month before. I turned down a job in Lehman Brothers on the 40th floor and took a job in Hoboken, just across the water from there. And I was actually right on the waterfront. And somebody said they saw a plane hit the first tower. And we all ran out and sat on a pier and we watched it, the whole thing. So I kind of took it in and, you know, accepted it for what it was. And, you know, got on with my life until about 3 or 4 years later, when I was helping my daughter do her physics homework. And essentially we figured out that there was something wrong there. So, you know, the physics homework was a ball on a marble on a tabletop, and the tabletop was a meter high. How long does it take the marble to hit the floor? And we worked out the calculations. And my daughter said, "I've got it, Dad, I've got it." So I said, "No, I'm going to set you one more little problem. Let's say it's a bowling ball and it's on top of, how high was the World Trade Center?" So we worked out.
Oh, no, I just said I don't know how tall it was. I don't know the exact measurement.
Yeah, well, we went online, we found out how high it was, and we worked out the calculation, and it came out to be about 10 seconds. And then a bell went off in my head, and I went back and watched the films, and sure enough, the whole building fell in 10 seconds. So all of a sudden I had a contrary view to the official story, and that whole world opened up to me. And that happened about the same time I was feeling my midlife crisis. So I started, you know, as we do, started absorbing information at an exponential rate. And then I, while looking at the Federal Reserve, as you do, you move from the conspiracy stuff into the monetary system. I started looking at the Federal Reserve and found a book by G. Edward Griffin about the Federal Reserve. Thought it was really good and wondered if he'd written anything else. And he wrote a book called World Without Cancer. And that kind of blew open the whole cancer scam. And that got me into looking at alternative health. So I started down that rabbit hole. Yeah, it's literally been a whirlwind of different rabbit trails, one leading to the other, and you know, you look at something and it leads to something else, and And yeah, it's been like an adventure game so far. It's been like a scavenger hunt.
Some people think that finding out about all these things would be depressing, and many people close the door on these things when they hear others talking about it. Maybe they're not really aware that they don't want their worldview destroyed, but on some level, I think that's what it is. But I don't see it at all as being a depressing thing. I think finding out the truth, or searching for the truth, and then finding how one thing leads to another is probably the most exciting thing ever, aside from the part that there's so many bad things being done to us.
Yeah, but the thing I found is I discovered this while I was doing a talk about this journey, that I went through the 5 stages of grief. It was obviously at the beginning you deny it, you know, and then you kind of, I can't remember what the stages are now, but one of the stages is depression, and literally you try and sort of bargain with the system and stuff, and eventually you just get totally depressed because you're not going to be able to change it by yourself, and then finally you come to accept it and move on, and in that is the excitement of the initial excitement of discovering this stuff, and then going through the stages of the grief and accepting it and moving on, and it's literally been one discovery after another. And once I've accepted one, the next discovery is just waiting in the wings to pounce on me. It's just been brilliant.
Yes, flat Earth is what might have been one of the things that brought us together for this conversation. But I do believe there is something tied in with flat Earth yet to come, yet another discovery or conspiracy that's waiting around the corner for us. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I know it's there because that is how it is. It's like those Russian dolls, one inside another, and we're all trying to solve the riddle.
Yeah, well, I've already found it.
I think I have too. We'll discuss that, definitely.
Well, I don't know, because it's that one is a whole hangout on its own, actually, because
oh wow.
I titled my flat Earth video "The Biggest Lie of All," but while I was researching it, I found an even bigger lie, and it's essentially the whole of history is a lie, and once you find all the pieces, you discover exactly what's going on right now, and who the players are, who you are, so again, it's such a huge topic, and also I have to say it's probably one that's going to be a bit upsetting for a lot of people. So I'm kind of hesitant to talk about it at this point until I get all my facts completely straight.
All right, we don't need to do that, but I do find it really interesting. And I do hear some echoes.
Yeah, so do I.
Don't know where that's coming from. Hopefully it'll go away. So my apologies. I'm having a few computer issues here, and who knows what that was caused by. By the way, it's D Murphy 25. If you have not seen his fantastic videos, and there's all sorts of videos there, not just flat Earth. The Biggest Lie, part 1 and part 2, are really great flat Earth videos. And before we ever spoke, I discovered those, and they're really mind-opening, mind-blowing, mind-expanding, all the good things. So thank you for doing those for all of us. It's great. Love it. So allegedly Dave is my guest, in case you're joining us now. And this is Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes. And we're talking about Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes, as I always do. This is episode number 5. And I'm Patricia Steere. And we were talking with Dave about how he was in New York. He was working in a kind of a money-oriented kind of job. And then things changed for him after 9/11. And that led to one thing, to another. And I can't say where'd you end up, because you still haven't ended up where you're going to end up yet. But where you moved, and where did you go, and what happened with your familial relationships? You have a daughter, I believe you have a son. At the time you had a wife. What happened?
Well, a lot of people in the truth community will probably resonate with this, that I changed completely. But you can't unlearn this information, and most people can't remain unmoved by it. So I literally changed, and I found that my wife couldn't follow me, as it were, and she was going through changes of her own. We've since found out that we were actually kind of going around the same problem and looking at it from two different angles. But she couldn't talk to me about what she was going through. I couldn't talk to her about what she was going through. And so instead of meeting around the other side, we just split. So my marriage broke down. You know, I couldn't work where I was working anymore, because I knew what was actually going on now. I knew what was coming because I was actually working for for Citibank at the time, and I was writing the systems for collateralized debt obligations and something else, credit default swaps, which was the basis behind what caused the crash of 2008. So they had to explain it to me so that I could write a computer software for it, and essentially I figured out what was coming down the pipe, and it seemed best to leave America and go back to home ground, as it were, knowing full well that, you know, whatever happens in America happens over here too.
Yes, all connected, really.
It's all connected.
Where do you live now?
Well, right now, having gone completely away from, you know, the big house and big car, I live in a motorhome, and I travel around helping people for nothing. I don't deal with money very much, and I take donations, but I don't ask for them. And I only really ask people to donate if I've been of some value to them. And I've written a book, which my family convinced me to actually charge for. Didn't want to, but I charged for it, and yeah, it's been quite handy because every now and again a few quid comes in, and I can continue traveling around. But yeah, I've essentially moved away from losing money.
I like what you're doing because you're, I guess, off the grid, and you're not a part of the system that you found out was the system that's creating all of these problems, or part of what's creating all of these problems. Mm-hmm. And so the way you're living now, you're not contributing to the problems, and you freed yourself up to be able to help others. And I think there's nothing wrong with charging for a book. You're not charging $500 for a book. You're, you know, covering probably the cost of printing it. I think it's completely fair, and you shouldn't feel bad about that. And anybody who would say anything against that doesn't really understand that you still have to pay for things. Even if you're out of the system, you still have to pay for the printing costs and that kind of thing, because not everybody is living like you are, and perhaps potentially bartering. People are, you know, in the regular matrix still. Mm-hmm. So you have to deal with that. So good. And we'll talk about the book later on. Your children, how have they dealt with the revelations and their dad changing from, you know, having an expensive sports car and driving around New York to living where you live now in a motorhome, and your belief system completely changing?
Well, my son basically got what I was talking about, and you know, there's a very short story that when he was about 13, I mentioned about aspartame. It was in sort of soft drinks, and I didn't say very much more. I mean, got wary about talking about this stuff around the family, but I mentioned it, and you know, just in passing. And a week or so later, my wife said, you go and talk to your son. He's just come in and bought two cases of drink. He's just taking it up to his room. I'm like, okay, I'll go and talk to him. Just thinking he was being a bit odd. It turns out he'd gone online and researched all food additives and found the only soft drink that didn't have any harmful ingredients in it, and bought 2 caseloads of them.
That's fantastic. I mean, not that people should be really drinking soft drinks per se, but I think it's great that he took on board what you had told him and then started utilizing it without telling anybody in his own life. I mean, that's, hats off to you for raising a son who would be able to take that into his own hands.
Sure. Yeah. But my daughter didn't really want to know. She was kind of, she was 17 or so, and she just wanted to be a 17-year-old. Didn't want to worry about hear all this stuff. And even now, if I mention anything, she kind of totally shuts off and doesn't want to know. So fair enough, she wants the life that she was promised, essentially.
Right.
So fair enough. We will wake up our own rates.
Yes, that's very true. Sometimes it's frustrating dealing with family members or friends or even people you don't really know online that haven't.
I do have to say, though, I did discover that without knowing it, she started using Freeman methodologies in dealing with officious people.
I want to talk to you about the free man movement, so that's a perfect time. You are part of that, and anybody can go to the D Murphy 25 website. Your channel on YouTube, and see you with a car that's not registered, and the police pulling you over. And explain for those of us who don't know the free man movement.
Well, the free man movement is essentially just people who've discovered that essentially we've been sold into bondage. And we're being tricked by the monetary system, by the legal system, and by corporations. And in fact, every entity that you deal with is a corporation, and they're all working together against you. And we've kind of worked out what's going on and trying to stand up against it. So I got involved before I left America, actually, finding out how the monetary system worked, and to test it, I dismissed a $9,000 credit card bill with just one letter, and just to see. I mean, I hadn't intended to stop paying at that point, but I sent the letter just to see what would happen, and essentially, well, no, step back. I got a BS letter back from them, not addressing any of my points, not conforming to what I'd asked for, and so I sent a notice back to them saying, no, you haven't answered my questions. You haven't answered any of my questions. And so the next thing that happened, I got a debt collector's letter from a debt collector saying, okay, you haven't paid this debt, even though I'd still been paying the payments off. They just closed my account. So I knew that I'd won, basically. So I just sent a letter to the debt collectors, and they went away as well. And that was it.
I think that a lot of people are intrigued by that if they have debt issues right now. They're like, how do I do that? But money really doesn't exist. And we have been, since the day we were born with our birth certificate, pretty much been sold into slavery. So true.
The trick behind money is that you're the one who creates it. So when you go to a bank for a loan, for instance, they'll come up and give you a loan agreement to sign, okay? And you sign that, and they take it away, and then they give you this credit, okay? But what's really happening is that when you sign that piece of paper, you've created a promissory note. I promise to pay the bearer, in effect. So you've created the money, and all they do is deposit it and then give you the money that you just created. So they didn't do anything.
Right.
And then they trick you into believing that you have to pay them back with interest. Yeah. So all you have to do is call them on their BS, really. You didn't give me anything,
The free man movement has as well to do with, as I mentioned earlier, things like getting a driver's license, things like registering property, those sorts of things. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, you mentioned the word register. Most of this trickery is to do with words, And when you register something, that means you hand over title ownership to whoever you're registering with. So when you register your car, you've handed it over to the state, and you become, in England, you become the registered keeper. You're no longer the owner. It just says it right there in front of you. You're the registered keeper. So you're literally keeping the car for the state who own it now. And so when you, if you get a driving license, for instance, people think that's a certificate of competence. It means you're fit to drive a car. Okay, that's the way we think of it. But in fact, it's a contract. Yeah, who signs the driving license? You do. So when do you ever get a certificate that you sign? You know, usually it's the person who's testing you will say, I certify this person's, you know, competent. But, you know, in this case, you sign it because it's a contract. And the contract is, I'm going to waive my natural right to travel in order to become something called a driver, which is a commercial title. That means a driver means somebody who's acting in commerce, somebody who's doing, you know, buying and selling on the roads. So if you're not a taxi driver or a lorry driver or anything like that, if you're just getting into your car to go down the shops, then you're not driving, you're traveling. It's two different things. But if you admit that you're a driver, well, now all sorts of things apply to you. You have to get tax, insurance, MOT. You have to do this, that, and the other to comply with the rules and regulations of being a driver. But that's you informing on yourself. It's you, you know, admitting you're this person when you're not. You know, but so many people have been fooled by this. If you stand up, you're going to get hammered down because you know, not too many people understand this.
Well, you have a video that shows you being arrested because you didn't have the proper documentation, at least what they think is the proper documentation to be driving. Can anybody do what you did?
Yes, they can. It's you know, I wouldn't really advise it unless you know, you really want to. If you really want to stand up against this, you really don't want to play games anymore. You don't want to be tricked by the system. I think if everybody did, then the whole system would fall. That's the downside. You know, right now there are millions of muggles out there who are just playing along because they know no better, and it's because of them that the few who stand up will get hammered down. But if enough people start realizing what the trick is, then the trick will fall. They can't keep the thing up any longer. But you know, I did it my way. I wasn't trying to advance a process and say this is what you do to do it. I was just documenting my attempt to stand in my own, you know, up for my rights. But if you see what I do, then find your own way, you know, because it takes every one of us to find our own way, our own path, and that's what we do. We find our own unique way of doing things. And maybe you'll do better, and maybe you'll inspire others to do the same. That's the way I see it anyway.
Well, since the title of the show is Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes, I do want to touch on the Flat Earth. Mm-hmm. But just back to the free man movement, Earth itself, land, owning property, owning a home, yet another scam, right?
It's all a trick. You know, we've been fooled by bits of paper that apparently have power. But they don't. We've just been fooled into believing they have.
We're not supposed to be living the way we're living, and that's why things are a mess. And that's why people have a feeling, even if you're completely not awake and you're part of the system, most people have something like in the back of their head, a voice or a feeling that you called it a midlife crisis, that something's wrong, that I'm not fulfilled. And people try to fulfill that that emptiness inside them by doing all sorts of unhealthy things, overeating, over drinking, abusing drugs, all sorts of the things that we all know that people can do. And buying a fancy sports car. And nothing wrong with having that if that's what you want. That doesn't mean you're a bad person or anything. But we try to fill the emptiness. And the real part that we need to understand is that nothing will fill it. We're living wrong, and that's why we feel it. And so
I bought the Ferrari because I thought, you know what, this is what I need. I need to be able to capture my youth and flash car. And so I bombed around in it for 2 weeks or so, and then realized that actually while I'm sitting in the car, it's just a car. I don't know I'm in a Ferrari, really. It's just another car. So I've bought this for other people to see me drive it. And I thought, well, that's not me. I'm not that sort of person. So, it was like, well, why did I get it then? And I just thought, well, none of it matters. None of it matters.
When I was the age of your daughter that you were speaking of, I think she said something like 17 now, I was, I guess, caught up in the world of being a 17-year-old girl and materialism. Not because I had bad parents or anything, it's just the way everybody was and the way things happened to be exhibited in movies and TV and my friends. And, I would buy nice clothes and go to the movies and all of those things. But little by little, I started seeing that things were false. These things I would purchase didn't make me feel better. And it took me a while to wean away from that and discover who I was and continue looking into things that were, to me, going down the wrong path and move away from all of those things. And I have a long way to go. Many of us do, but at least knowing that you're in this system can help you break out of the system. And then, of course, after you can help other people break out. You don't have to have all of the answers either. Just helping people become aware.
Yeah, well, the thing about this society is that it exists to keep you from figuring out who you are and what you're here to do. Okay, so that's why we're kept busy with busyness and we're kept occupied with an occupation. The answer's in the words right there. Yeah, we're just being occupied, and we're given lots of things that we have to do. Okay, we have to go to work, so that we have to buy clothes to match work. So we have to buy a car, and we have to get tax insurance. We have to do this and that and the other, and one thing builds on another and builds on another. And before long, you've got this massive weight on your back, and your life is on rails. Okay, and those rails lead to the deathbed. And when you get to the deathbed, you realize when you look back over your life that you hadn't actually lived. And this is what they're trying to do to us. They're trying to keep us, asleep and unaware, and just live short, brutal lives and die quietly somewhere.
Yes, after we've contributed to the system to the best of our ability.
After we've helped build their system that facilitates this way of killing people slowly. Essentially.
It's a factory, and we are the employees on the assembly line, and it doesn't matter if you're a doctor or a lawyer or a farmer or whatever you're doing. As long as you're caught up in the system, you are feeding the system. And maybe you don't want to, but you need to try at least to look at it this way and break free as much as you can. And you were talking about words like busy with busyness. Programming. People come home from those jobs, and then they are programmed with watching TV programs. So they're doing everything they can to distract us so we don't see what's happening right in front of our eyes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is an amazing time in history because there are more people waking up. And I think the internet has backfired on them because this is the only way we've been able to grow so exponentially, because we can share our experiences and knowledge.
Yes, I remember being younger and reading books on certain things, even George Orwell, 1984, and being able to kind of see what was going on and how that related to society. We may have just lost Dave there. Not really sure. Oh, looks like he's coming. Looks like he's popping back. You're back.
What happened there?
It's magic. I think it was the government knowing who you are.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But when I was a child, my dad gave me George Orwell's 1984, and I could understand that what that was. And some of those things probably were happening when I read the book, which was prior to 1984.
Mhm.
But I see all of that unfolding within my lifetime and more. I mean, I think that was more of not a work of fiction, actually. It's the never-ending wars. I mean, so many things in that book are just incredible. But a lot of people say he's
Actually,
a Mason or something like that too. So,
well, actually, I noticed, if you go back and read that book, you'll find something even more amazing. There's a bit, a guy actually saying, well, the stars aren't thousands, millions of miles away. They're a few kilometers away. And
wow.
yeah, it's like there's stuff in there that if you read now, you go, wow, why didn't I see this in there before?
Interesting. There's a lot of that out there that's right in front of our faces that we don't notice. I never noticed that. I'm going to go after our talk here and take a look at that. I've got the book on my bookshelf. Well, oh, by the way, it's Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes, and I'm Patricia Steere, and allegedly Dave is here. Dave, D Murphy 25, his YouTube channel, and he's got some videos called The Biggest Lie, many other videos too, but The Biggest Lie is about Flat Earth. When did you, I mean, we were talking about 9/11 earlier, and you changing your life and doing what you're doing with the Free Men movement. When did you find out about the Flat Earth and start talking about it? How did that all happen for you?
Whoa, yeah, well, it was actually last October. So I'm actually coming up to a whole year now.
It's your
I
flat anniversary.
Yeah, I was actually I was in Turkey. I'm in Turkey right now, and I happened to be in Turkey back then. And I was researching something else. I can't remember what it was, but I found there was a video on the sidebar there, and it looked intriguing. Didn't say anything about flat Earth, but it was intriguing. So I clicked on it. I thought, wonder what this is about. And it started talking about some esoteric kind of experiment, Aries failure, actually it was called. And I didn't quite understand it. And then he mentioned flat Earth. I thought, oh, God, flat Earth. And I was just about to turn it off, thinking, no wonder I didn't understand it. And then it started talking about the Bedford levels experiment. And I was like, So I sat and watched it to the end. And by the end, I was thinking, well, he's got a point there. So like many others of us who've come across this, I went into this like feverish hunt for anything flat Earth I could find. And at that time, there wasn't an awful lot out there. I did find Eric Dubé's one of his videos like after about a week or so, but there wasn't an awful lot out there. There was mostly a guy called Malcolm Bowden who did a lot of very technical things, which were hard to kind of get your head around. But slowly and surely there are a few kept creeping in, and every time a new one popped up, I was on it. I was like, a new one, I was on it, and devouring it. I couldn't talk to anybody about it. You mentioned flat Earth, people's eyes glaze over, and that's it. You lost them. So I just kind of kept it like a guilty secret. And then Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues came out, and what he did, which was amazing, was that he condensed all the information down and separated it into nice, easy, manageable chunks. And that was a bit of a turning point for me, and it seemed like a turning point for many people, because as soon as that came out, there seemed to be like the floodgates opened, and all sorts of videos started appearing. Whether they were there in the first place and I didn't notice them, I don't know, but it just seemed like it's been an exponential growth of people just waking up to this. And eventually I got to the point where I tried talking to a few people about it, and the balance kind of tipped from people who just went, oh, shut up, to people went, yeah, you got a point, but I still don't believe you, So I got the courage to make my own video, essentially.
So when you made your own video, did you put it out there and just walk away and say, okay, if 3 people watch it, I'll be happy? And then check later how many people have watched it?
Well, when I sort of uploaded it, I had my finger on the publish button, going, shall I? Yeah, am I going to suddenly be like a pariah, and nobody ever talked to me again? And you know, but I hit the button, and as you say, I walked away, and thought, well, I'll go and check back maybe in a week and see what's happened. But before I could, all of a sudden I got a flood of emails from YouTube, and then a flood of emails from people writing to me, and it took off. It was quite amazing.
I'm looking at it now. It's The Biggest Lie Part 1 and 2 on D Murphy 25's channel, allegedly Dave, who's our guest today on Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes. And I'm just looking at my phone right now, and The Biggest Lie of All Part 1 is 221,000 views, and The Biggest Lie of All Part 2 is 117. Well, why didn't those 221 go on to the next video? It should be 221 on both.
I don't know.
Follow it up, but anyway, that's a lot of views.
Well, I do know that there's been quite a few people who have actually reposted the video, so on their channel. So yeah, it's actually spread out quite thinly now. But yeah, I was kind of shocked myself, really.
Well, when you you posted it, and then you did your second video, and you got some probably favorable emails, maybe some emails and messages and comments that were not so favorable. I mean, that would be assumed that those things would happen. Mm-hmm. At that time, you probably didn't know anybody in the Flat Earth community that much. I wouldn't assume you did, because you had kept it to yourself when you found out the news. Then, of course, you made connections with other people and became probably friends with them. But had you, before you put these videos out, met one single person who was a flat earther like you in real life?
None, absolutely none. That's why you can't really talk about it, or you couldn't really talk about it, because everyone would have the same predictable reaction. It's just a preposterous idea. Even I thought that when I first saw it. They've done a really good job on us, a really good job. And I realize it's because, as children, when we're completely impressionable, they literally flood us with this information and say, oh, of course the earth is round and this is how it works. And we go, okay, I suppose so. And then we, as adults, we never go back and look at it. But if you go back and look at this stuff with an adult eye, then you go, huh? Why did I believe that? But most people aren't willing to go back and look at this, because it's now deeply ingrained in them. I'm kind of working on a third video, but something's stopping me from actually, going through with it, but I'll figure that out. But I was going to use a video that I found of a guy who'd made a bicycle that, as you turn it left, the wheel goes right, okay? And he thought it would be a fairly easy job to train himself to, use this backwards bike. It took him 8 months to train himself, to untrain himself, actually, from this deeply ingrained idea that he learned as a child just to ride a bike, okay? It took him 8 months to undo that programming. And that's the level of programming that we're dealing with. There are some people who will find it very, very, very difficult to unlearn this idea of us being on a ball.
I have as well seen the backwards bicycle video, and many of us have. I think it's quite telling that the gentleman who made the video's son also had a backwards bicycle, and he challenged his son, and his son learned quicker than he did, because the mind of younger people, children, is way more flexible. But it still took his son some time to unlearn what he'd been taught. So what about your son? You said your son was somewhat open, to some of the things that you were talking about. What about Flat Earth? Have you talked to him about that?
I haven't. I haven't at all, actually. He's friends with me on Facebook and everything, and I put the videos out and I've been talking about it. And normally, if I'd expect to hear something negative, but I've not heard anything negative about it or positive. So I'm not going to force it on him. I'm not going to force this on anybody. Yeah, my video is me asking questions and telling what my interpretation of the answers is, coming up with my own knowing at the end of it. It's not so much of knowing at the end of it, because I concluded it with, well, I don't know if it's flat. I just know that it's not a ball, and I know that the sun isn't that far away and the moon isn't that far away. I just know that the story we've been told is wrong. I will change that now, because I've investigated the concave model, which is fascinating. It was, for me, it was, I liked the concave model because it answered a lot of questions. It felt good to me because I liked the idea that the Earth is a cell, and it's probably in a larger body, and that sort of satisfies my idea for as above, so below. If the Earth is a cell and we're parts of the cell, well, we've got cells ourselves, and there are parts in that, and so on down, and so on up. That sounds nice and neat to me. But I've moved away from that model. It doesn't resonate with me. I discovered the Bible, actually, through this. And, I think, I know that this has shown me that there is a creator after 34 years of atheism. The model of the flat Earth in the enclosed dome seems to be the one that the Bible endorses, and the one that feels more real to me. Having seen, and this was the clincher for me for the dome model, having seen Operation Fishbowl. Have you come across that?
Yes, of course, definitely. Well, go ahead and explain it.
Yeah, so presumably after Admiral Byrd came back from Antarctica, where it's possible that he found the edge of the dome, immediately afterwards America and Russia started firing nuclear missiles straight up. I got hold of some of the films of the explosions. Now, interestingly, when an explosion happens, in midair, the heat rises, so the explosion rises up. Okay, when you see these Operation Fishbowl explosions, what you find is a central point of the explosion. It sort of glows a dull red or a dull color, and then fades slowly, as if something got heated up by the explosion, and the heat and shockwave and smoke and everything kind of goes outwards in an ever expanding ring, as if it's exploding against something. Rather than exploding upwards, it's exploding outwards, as if there's a barrier that it's exploding against. And the point where the bomb exploded has been heated up and then cools down. It's it's obvious when you see it.
I haven't seen these videos that you're speaking of. I know about Operation Fishbowl, but I didn't know there were any videos of the bombs, missiles, whatever they were, being shot at the dome. But I do feel, as you do, that I went from a place of close to atheism to being fully a believer in a creator. And for me, the dome model is what resonates the most, for the same reasons that you're speaking of. And other religions as well have that sort of a flat plane and enclosed sort of world. However, I'm open-minded to all of the other models, and I have not explored the concave Earth to the level that you have. And here's why. I like to look at everything, but something about that has made me not want to explore it. And I know that's wrong and unfair, because that's what people do with the flat Earth when they're not interested. They're like, this is stupid. And I don't think it's right that I've dismissed it as long as I have. I'm not really dismissing it, but I just don't feel drawn to explore it. So I
Mhm.
probably need to do that to be fair about all of this. I don't ever want to argue with anybody who believes that we live on an endless plane or in puddle theory or stacked flat Earths. Anything's possible. But for me, what resonates the most is the dome for a variety of reasons, including Jeffrey Grupp's sundog experiments, where he kind of
Interesting,
used a bowl and a lighter. And, well, you know what I'm talking about,
yeah.
Dave.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. I've only recently come up with this one, and yes, it's kind of, it is fascinating. And the only thing that that I'm not sure about, and I'm going to have to look a bit more into it, is that for the bowl idea, the dome reflection idea, well, the reflection would have to be behind the clouds. And sometimes you see these sundogs in front of clouds. So if it was reflecting off the back wall of the dome, then the light would actually come in behind the clouds and be obscured by the clouds. Yeah, but
Very true.
sometimes you see these sundogs, and I'm going to have to look because it's just from memory that I remember seeing them in front of the clouds. So I'm going to have to look a bit further into it.
Maybe clouds' functions are different than what we think in some way.
Maybe. I mean, as at the beginning of my video, I say that maybe there's stuff that we just won't ever understand, and that's possible. We can't be arrogant enough to believe that we're going to be able to understand everything about how this world
Well,
works.
if you think that you understand everything, then basically you're locked in the system that everyone's in now. NASA,
Yeah.
they understand everything. Science understands everything. Ask no questions because we've got it all figured out. And if you disagree, you're stupid. I mean, that's the system we're living in now. And well, I'm not living in it, and either are you, and either are any of the people, well, maybe some who are watching this broadcast. So it's a great feeling to free yourself from what you can definitely see as a lie, even if
Yeah.
all you know is we don't live on a ball, because that's where I am.
Well, I said I gave the concave Earth a fair shake. I was intrigued by it because I heard about something called a Dyson sphere, which is essentially a spaceship which is based on like the concave model, so big that people live on the inside of the sphere. That's a staple of science fiction. But having done some experiments with seeing no curvature, well, if I don't see curvature on on a convex model, well, I shouldn't, I should see curvature, some kind of curvature on a concave model. But it just didn't resonate with me anyway. The infinite plane, okay, that's fair enough. But again, the biblical model made sense because, I mean, they wrote about it, thousands of years ago. That's how they conceived it. So, and now we're seeing that a lot of what they're saying is true. So why can't this be true as well?
Yes, and we could have an infinite plane or a larger plane than we know of, meaning more land with a dome over it. That's a possibility as well. So I'm open to those things. But for me, I have an idea of what I think is going on. But every day I'm learning new things. Every day I'm going to YouTube because I've never stopped being obsessed. I found out about this in March and knew about other sorts of conspiracies. But every day I'm still on YouTube, and I set the search for today, videos from today, and then look what's new, and all sorts of things are popping up from all sorts of different people, different models, different approaches to doing videos, different experiments, and I think it's incredible. And although I don't know anybody in real life who is involved in the Flat Earth community, I feel happy to have connected through social media and things such as what we're doing right now with so many people who are thinking in some way like I am. For the very first time in my life, I feel that connection. And then, of course, at the same time, I'm feeling disconnected from all the bad things in the world, and I'm trying to do something to fight against them, and I feel a connection to a creator. So it sounds like a horrible thing to find out your whole world isn't what you thought, but in a way, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm sure you feel the same.
Yeah. What's really exciting is that, up until now, we've been putting our responsibility on experts and scientists, to tell us what our world is like. But pretty much for the first time, there are thousands and thousands of people all around the world now doing their own experiments and saying, so the scientists, we're going to find out. Doing this experiment. The one that blew my mind really was finding out that the moon's light is cold light, colder in the moonlight than the shade. And people, right, let's test this. And they've come up with experiments and they've tested it time and time again. Where have we heard this from mainstream science? This is a big thing. Mainstream science hasn't done this. Some bloke in his backyard has done the experiment and proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that the moon's light isn't being reflected from the sun. That's a huge thing. And this is done by an ordinary person like, you and me, and being shared with people like you and me. And this is just unbelievable and really exciting, And like you, every day, well, I usually put it for a week just in case I miss any. Almost every week somebody's come up with a new experiment to try, and sort of proving another point. When I started, I was in a seaside town, and there was a lighthouse that's a known distance away, and I was on the beach, right near the water. And I could see the bottom of the lighthouse absolutely clearly, even though the lighthouse was 8 miles away. It should have been something like, I can't remember offhand, 32 feet or something like that below the horizon at that point. But no, I could see it perfectly. That just blows it out of the water right there.
Yes.
So yeah, it's an exciting time because we're taking our power back by taking responsibility for finding out what our world is about.
Well, we've been taught, of course, that we need the fossil fuels, the petrodollar, that sort of thing. And then some people think, well, we're going to go with wind power, we're going to go with solar power, but those things really still tie you back into the oil and gas industry. And I live in Houston, Texas. Speaking of the oil and gas industry in the United States, that's what's here. That's probably why I don't know anybody who at all who talks about flat Earth in real life, or even knows that 9/11 wasn't done by Arabs with box cutters who hate Americans' freedoms. I mean, everybody here that I've met in Houston, Texas, has been sold. NASA, we went to the moon. I mean, everyone has swallowed the whole thing. And I know there's people here who have awakened. I just personally have not met any of them. But Tesla, I'm sure Tesla has played some role in your life and the way you think. Could you tell us a little bit about that and magnetic motors? I've seen some of your videos on the D. Murphy 25 channel on YouTube. Right.
Well, before I left America, I got into the idea of free energy devices. And, I used to do electronics, used to be an electronic engineer at one point. So I started on a bit of a quest to try and find something that will, that could power my house. And I kind of hit upon something called the Bedini Energizer, which was an invention by a guy called John Bedini. The story is that his next door neighbor's 10-year-old daughter wanted something for the science fair, and John Bedini just sort of sketched something out on the back of a napkin and said, build that. And so she went ahead and built it. And it was a magnetic motor that was able to keep a light bulb alight for 2 weeks or something off the same batteries. And literally that circuit has been released and under the name of the Simple Schoolgirl Circuit. And anyone can go online, download this thing. It's very simple, very basic electronics, one transistor and a handful of other little components. And you can go ahead and build this thing. And it's literally a coil and a wheel with magnets on it. And this thing, you power it with one small battery, and it will charge up a whole bank of batteries. Okay, so it's not very sexy as a free energy device, but it does a job. So I built a prototype. I used a hard disk platter from a computer, and I stuck some magnets on the disk. I made my coil and made the circuit, and I got it to work first time. And my first prototype, you see me charging up a car battery with a tiny Radio Shack battery, and it certainly did. It charged a completely dead battery that wouldn't hold a charge, and it brought it up like new. So then, after experimenting a bit, I kind of blew up this circuit, and I was a bit annoyed, and I blew it up. So I tried to rebuild it, but I ran out of one, or I didn't have one of the components at the right size. So I stuck in a larger size resistor in there, and tried to start it. It wouldn't work, but it started making this whining sound. And you know, the wheel wouldn't go round, but just the hard disk was whining. So I happened to notice that I looked down at the meters that were on the batteries, and the battery was being charged, even though the wheel wasn't going around. So I basically built a larger version that didn't have a wheel, as a motionless one. A lot of people have now discovered this as well. But I've now built this kind of like big box with 7 circuits in it instead of the one, and I had it powering my motorhome for 3 months before I decided to tinker with it and then blew it up again. But,
I was going to ask you how you know, since I see you're using probably electricity because you've got the microphone and we're talking, and I was wondering how you're using that in your life. So you were using it to power the place you're living in. That's incredible. So
I've got a battery bank of 8 leisure batteries, and I have, again, the two original Radio Shack batteries that I had in America, and a solar panel to keep those little batteries charged, and literally it keeps the huge bank of batteries charged up, and I've got an inverter which takes that and steps it up to mains voltage. So there's no power outages at your place, or if there were, you could handle it. Yes, but no, at this point, I'm without it because I blew it up. I've got. Right. It takes a long time to wind coils and that. Are you going to build another one? I am. If I get a chance, I've got so many other projects on the go, so I'll get round to it at some point. Things like this are kept from the public by the authority, the powers that be, because of course they want us as slaves, generally speaking, and plugged into the system where we're relying on oil and gas. And as I said earlier, wind power, solar power, it's all tied in with oil and gas in the end, really. So these kind of things are hushed up, pushed aside. I would imagine even people who are involved with these things are maybe even killed. Yeah, there's another aspect to this energy that is very odd. Okay, and the people who are probably watching this will probably understand this. My friend, we were setting up a solar power array, and we were talking about Masaru Emoto and his work with water has a memory. You're aware of that? Yep. Yes, I certainly am, and I have distilled water that I have in my home. I used to just have bottled water, but then recently ordered a distiller because I realized that's the best way to go, and maybe we'll touch on that a little bit later. But yeah. I've written on a piece of sticky note, like something along the lines of this, words, this is ridiculous, maybe some will think, love, happiness, togetherness, and pinned it on the bottles of distilled water I made. So it's somewhat like the water has memory thing. I'm not sure if it's accomplishing anything, but it makes me feel happy and connected to do something like that. But tell us about the water has memory for those who don't know about it. Well, Masaru Emoto discovered that if he labeled, as you say, like two glasses of water one with love and the other one with I hate you or whatever. And then basically Flash froze the water. The one that says I love you will come up with very beautiful patterns, but the one that says I hate you comes out of this sort of ugly shape. And he repeated the experiment time and time again, where all positive messages, froze beautifully, and all negative froze in this ugly pattern, showing that water does seem to be structured by human emotion. Now, my friend, we were talking about this, and my friend Jeff said that he did an experiment after watching Emoto's work. He had a dead car battery, and what he did was he put a label on the car battery that said 14 volts, and he put it up on a shelf, and every day he'd take it down and intend 14 volts into it. Okay, and after 2 weeks of doing this, he put a meter on it, 14 volts. And he told me, it was like, oh, that was brilliant. So I went home and I got one of my my little Radio Shack batteries, and being a bit of a smart ass, I put 13.7 volts on it. Okay. So I did the same thing. I every day I take it down and intend 13.7 volts into it. And after 2 weeks, I put a meter on it. It was dead.
Oh, no.
I thought, oh, okay, never mind. And the funny thing was that a couple of weeks later, I was doing the experiment with my Bedini, and I grabbed the battery the wrong way around, so I didn't see the label. I grabbed the battery, and I had to charge it up. So I put it on the Bedini to charge. I came back a couple of hours later. I thought, oh, it's got to be charged by now. Took it off, put the meter on it, 13.7 volts.
Wow, interesting coincidence, or something, but very, very interesting.
Yeah. Now, I'll just add that I got a large 10 coil Bedini motor, and we built this thing, and my friend Nolan was experimenting with it, and he found that around this motor, plants grew crazily around it. There was an African violet that wouldn't really grow in this country, but while we were running this thing, and we'd be running this thing almost continuously, yeah, this African violet, grew and bloomed. As soon as we turned it off, the African violet sort of, shrunk away again, withered and died. And Nolan also noticed that its efficiency would increase or drop off depending on who approached it. So
that's amazing. That's amazing.
So we're finding that there is some aspect of consciousness that has something to do with this energy that in fact Tesla discovered back in 1885. He called it radiant energy, and Bedini's Energizer uses radiant energy to charge batteries.
Well, back to what you were saying about the experiments of and water has memory. We are made up of water, and our flat Earth is. We don't know the exact situation, of course, but there's a lot of water here. So all of those things, the energy involved. I talked over you. Excuse me. Say that again.
Sorry, I talked over you. Same proportion as in the human body, by the way.
Yes, exactly. So there's something to all of this. You know how people always say thoughts are things, and many people laugh that off. But it's sort of like water has memory, and that's probably in many ways why the world is working the way it is, because of our mindset, the mindset we've been tricked into having, actually.
Yeah. Well, think about it. We are water with a few impurities. That's it. The whole Earth is water with a few impurities. Yeah. It's the same thing, of course water has a memory because we do. We're structured by our intentions and our environment and our thoughts and feelings. So why shouldn't water be? If we're water with a few impurities, then then water, pure water, well, I mean, what is that? That's got to be us, without a body as such.
Yes. If we've been able to transcend where we are now, we would probably be at some level of purity like that, pure water or pure energy or something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, we're just rendering water as water. Water is just pure energy, as you say. You know, we're just rendering it as this thing we call water. So anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, but back to what we were talking earlier about distilled water. I know you're a lover of distilled water. Can you explain for all of us the benefits of distilled water and what you use to distill it, and anything else about that topic?
Okay. Well, first of all, distilled water, nature only creates distilled water. So, you know, rain, fog, dew, you know, it's a few more in that, snow, a few other types of precipitation. I can't remember offhand, but nature only creates distilled water. Now, doctors will tell us not to drink distilled water because they'll tell us it will leach minerals out of your body. Well, that's a kind of half truth, because what they don't tell you is there are two types of minerals. There are inorganic minerals and there are organic minerals. You're made up of organic living minerals. So the calcium in your bones isn't the same as calcium in chalk. Okay, so the calcium in your bones is organic living, and the or inorganic is rock and dirt, essentially. So when you drink mineral water, spring water, tap water, the minerals in it that they say is so good for you are actually the inorganic forms, and your body doesn't know what to do with them. So what your body does is just deposit it all around your body. So when it goes into your joints, that's arthritis. When it's in your eyes, it's cataracts. When it's in your arteries, it's heart disease and strokes. When it's in your kidneys, it's kidney stones, gallbladder, gallstones, all sorts of things. So what distilled water does is it dissolves and washes away inorganic minerals. So we know this intuitively because we wash our clothes with water, and when we do that, the dirt, rock and dirt, comes out of the clothes and stays in the water. But the water doesn't touch the organic forms like blood stains, sweat stains, grass stains. Yeah, you need some kind of detergent to break those down so the water can dissolve it. Okay, so literally water will not leach, you know, calcium out of your bones. It will leach the calcium that is building up in your joints and your arteries. So
there's so many fallacies about, just since you're speaking of calcium or mineral in general, that we supplement. Oh, I hear that echo again. Strange. Sorry for anybody who's being bothered by it. It's gone now. Good. Calcium pills. People take all sorts of things. Doctors prescribe that they need to, especially women take calcium, and they're sort of generally taking inorganic calcium that's probably going to be causing all those issues that you just touched on. Yep. So you're hearing that one now too?
Yeah, somebody just fell over.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's okay.
All sorts of issues going on. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about this subject. Maybe we need to start talking about the Kardashians or something, and technical difficulties will go away.
Yeah.
But yeah, taking those minerals that we've been told to, you know, our body needs ends up doing a disservice to our bodies. So you have a distiller. I've got a distiller. Mine's new. You've probably had yours for a while. What kind of water? Are you collecting rainwater to distill, or using tap or bottles? What are you doing?
It doesn't matter actually what water you distill, because the distiller will make that water pure, absolutely pure. So what you'll find is if you use tap water, you'll find that in the bottom of the distiller there'll be all sorts of horrible rubbish left over. That stuff would normally end up inside you, but you just use your distiller for a couple of weeks without cleaning it and see what you end up with. It's shocking. So it doesn't matter what water you put in there, you know, the actual pure water will come out the other end.
I used to buy distilled water in plastic jugs until I watched a documentary called Tapped, and just did some more research on the BPA that's leaching out of it into water and anything else. Even things that say BPA free still leach this, and it's just running havoc with our body. And of course, that's what the powers that be want. They're trying to figure out as many ways as possible to slow kill us or fast kill us, just, whatever.
Yeah.
Because there's always new people born every day to get into the system and the assembly line and get that birth certificate and make them some more money so they can continue their evil plot.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I do in one of my talks is that just to dispel this idea that people are being fooled by, the tap water and stuff. What I do is I get some water, the local water, wherever I happen to be, that people are happy to drink, whether it's out the tap or if it's spring water or something, and I get some distilled water, okay, and I will measure. I've got this meter called a TDS meter that shows me how much total dissolved solids are in the water. And well, the worst I've got so far is where I used to live. The tap water there was 550 parts per million. That's like terrible. Yeah. So I get a high reading in the spring water. Then I'd show that the distilled water would come out at 0. And just to kind of dispel people's idea of what's going on, I'd take the distilled water, pour it into a bowl, wash my hands in it, and then measure it again. And normally it comes out about 71, depending on how dirty my hands are. And, literally 71. And usually that's like 4, 5, 10 times cleaner than the water they would happily drink out of the tap. But nobody's going to drink the water that they've just watched me wash my hands in. So in that way, it kind of dispels this idea that it's quite okay to drink tap water and spring water, because literally you're being fooled by this idea that the water looks clean,
Well, the bottled water industry, not all of the companies, but many of the companies, Nestle is really horrible. They're just bottling water, that's just in a fresh body of water. There's nothing special about it other than it's water. They're just basically stealing the water and then reselling it and putting it in toxic plastic bottles that go into landfills and, of course, poison us with the BPA, even the BPA free. And people's offices, you used to work in an office, that big blue water cooler. When people go use that and drink from it and get water from it, I'm thinking, just like when somebody grabs a Coca-Cola or a Diet Coke, I'm thinking you're killing yourself with your own hands, really, and you're destroying the world as well with the bottles and the cans and all of those other things. It's a mess, really.
The BPA is actually targeting men because it's an artificial female hormone. And essentially, it's feminizing men. So, do you drink a lot of this, bottled water or stuff out of plastic bottles, then you're ingesting so much female hormones that can't help but having an effect on you.
Well, they're doing that on purpose. There's a big push, it seems to me, to feminize men, to stop them from producing sperm, really, in the end, to end us. But I don't quite understand that, because they need us to be their slaves. So I don't know what the agenda is. Maybe just kill some of us?
No, they don't. They need us to put their systems in place so that they can exterminate us.
Right.
Because they can't. A small group can't do it by themselves. They need us to do it for them. So we're put into a situation where we feel we have to do this thing so that we could survive ourselves, but I guess in the back of everyone's mind, they know they're literally hurting themselves, further along the line. But you're forced to do it.
I think a lot of people don't realize they're hurting themselves. They're working for these companies, these maybe oil and gas companies, or they're working for a bottled water company. Nice people, good people, people probably who want the best for their families. I mean, everyone really does, but they don't really realize their income is based on providing something toxic for the world. And even if you tell them that, you can't really tell somebody, hey, your job's killing the world, because people are going to just put up a wall to that. What you've done is take yourself off the grid, so you're not really participating in that anymore. And a lot of us don't feel that we can do that. We live in a city, we have a job, we have this and that, but taking little steps is something that you can do. Take yourself away from those products like the Coca-Cola, like the regular, buying the tap water in plastic, and a million other ways to take yourself out of the system. And you'll start feeling something change within you, and you may start exploring more avenues, because there's so many different ones. And I'm about ready to talk with you about your book now, the Human Body Owner's Workshop Manual.
Before you go on to that, I can talk about how to remove yourself from the system slowly.
Yes, let's do that. I want to tie your diet and other things in with that, in which I was thinking water would be a good association. But how to remove ourselves from the system? Please let us know.
Well, you can start by removing the irrelevancies from your life. Okay, there are some things that are completely irrelevant to your life, but we've been controlled into believing they're important, and we have to do these things, and they're nice things to do, so we ought to do them, but we almost kill ourselves to do it. One of them is Christmas. People spend a lot of time and energy and money to do this ritual, which I'm not going to go into the fact that it's a completely satanic ritual. And it's nothing to do with Jesus or anything Christian. It's a satanic ritual, but in a physical nuts and bolts way, it's actually you stretching yourself to create this illusion for one day of the year, and if you drop that irrelevancy, you'll find that a lot of things, a lot of pressures drop away from you. So you can look through your life and find irrelevancies of that caliber, and if you like this idea of giving gifts, well, give gifts some other time. Choose a day and say, what, we'll give each other gifts, and we'll meet up on this day and celebrate being together on this day. So find irrelevancies. We have in our houses so much stuff that we don't need and we don't use. Living in the States, when I sold the house, I found a whole loft full of things that we never ever used, never ever looked at. Useful things, but not useful to us. And even in the house, there's all sorts of stuff that we didn't actually need. So give it away, sell it, give it away. You don't need it. Drop the baggage. And again, when you drop the baggage, you find you're lighter. Sorry, you're going to say something.
My parents recently died, or one died and then the other died, and at that point we had to go. Echo again. Go away, Echo. Well, I'll just continue. My parents died and we had to sell their house and, of course, go through the possessions. And I never lived in that house that they lived in. And by going through all their possessions, it made me feel very sad, because it wasn't just the things that were out that they were using. There was a storage room with all of these other things. And all of these other things, I could tell, although neatly wrapped up and saved, hadn't been used for years. And these were things that other people could use. And what we did with those things was donate them. We didn't go in, we didn't sell them. Some went to my sister, and I don't know what she's going to do with them. But primarily, a lot of it was just given away, and great items that my parents weren't even using. But they were sort of tied into that old way of thinking. My parents were lovely people, great people. And I miss them dearly. But, they were just tied into the normal system. And getting rid of those things, and other people have them now and hopefully are putting them to good use. But then I think I'm just creating, by giving these things to other people, I'm just making them become more materialistic. It's just perpetuating the cycle of having more and more things. But I agree with you about Christmas. So we can also unplug get rid of television. We don't really need to watch TV. Magazine subscriptions. There's so many things that are part of our lives that are just really utterly garbage, that if we get rid of them, you do feel freer and lighter. And if you want to go to the extent that you went to, and just, not use money really anymore, I mean, that's really the ultimate. And people who are growing their own food, I mean, that's really amazing.
Well, that's a few good points there, actually. There are lots of things that you don't need, like, as you say, television. So you've got a cable subscription to Sky or whatever. You don't need it. There's nothing on there anyway. And what you find is that if you turn that television off, you find other interests that pop up. You cancel those magazines. Again, you'll find other interests. More often than not, physical things that you actually do with your hands, skills that you learn. I'll tell the story that my son was an Xbox addict, and when it broke one day, I refused to get him another one. And after going through withdrawal symptoms, he literally discovered an interest in music, and now he's had a couple of albums out on iTunes. He's like a registered manager. He started got his friends liberated and started them in a pop group. He's now a battle rapper and doing really well, just because he dropped that creativity sucking device out of his life. He found his creativity, and there's millions of children out there whose creativity is being lost by being occupied by this evil machine.
Yes.
So there are things like that. If you stop watching television, you free up so much time in your life, and you lose so much negativity, which is being poured out of that thing, that you start finding interests of your own. You start realizing who you are, and you start going along your own path. And also you save money. The other thing is realizing that your body doesn't actually need food. Now,
I wanted to discuss that and your Human Body Owner's Manual workshop.
Yeah, I'll go into detail on that bit.
Yes, I want to talk about that you don't need food, and move into something that you can drink, and how you can kind of keep yourself alive without any help from anything except what's inside of you. So tell us about that. I mean, don't need any food is what most people are thinking. Really?
Yes. Well, the human body doesn't actually need food. The body spends most of its time and energy trying to get rid of the food you put down there. And literally, food doesn't give you energy; it saps you of it. And because it takes 80% of your energy to digest the food, which is why if you overeat at a Christmas meal, you are tired and lethargic. I can't move. Rather than bursting with energy. If you're eating a lot of food, you're supposed to have lots of energy, but it's the other way around. So what you find if you stop eating for any length of time, if you stop eating for more than 3 or 4 days, you find that your appetite disappears and your energy levels raise through the roof because you're liberating all that energy. And if you're suffering from something, then that energy goes into repair work, and you will recover, much quicker. And again, your intuitive mind knows this, because when you get sick, the first thing you really want to do is stop eating. But then your programmed mind says, well, I've got to keep my strength up. So you start eating stuff, and then you lose the energy, and then it takes you longer to recover. Yeah, when you realize it doesn't mean you have to stop eating altogether, but when you realize that your life doesn't depend on you eating food, then you can cut back drastically. These days I tend to, I'm at my mum's at the moment, so so she's feeding me up, but normally I eat a piece of fruit every other day, and that's enough. And you know, when you get to that level, then, you know, you're hardly spending any money on food. You're hardly spending any money on the preparation of food. You know, a lot of things again drop away. And on the subject of food and growing your own, well, growing your own sounds very daunting. It sounds like, well, you need land, you need to be, you know, tilling the earth and you know, fertilizers and all this stuff. Yeah, no, you know, there's a whole range of foods that you buy in every day and then throw out that you can just, for instance, like get a lettuce. If you get a lettuce and you start cutting off the leaves to eat, you plant the base of the lettuce and new shoots will grow and you'll keep regenerating the lettuce. You know, if you buy some tomatoes, okay, and like you got five tomatoes, and you take one of them, slice it, put it on in a pot with earth, and then lightly cover it with earth, and you start growing a tomato plant. There is a whole list of you know, foods that you eat that you can just keep regrowing, you know, and it doesn't mean you have to till the earth and have a huge patch of land. You can start growing your own food, you know, easily. So there's that. Sorry, you're going to say something.
Oh, I was going to say sprouting. You can sprout. It's very easy to do that too.
And that keeps going as well, doesn't it?
Yes.
You know, you just keep it going. So again, you can cut down your intake. You can start growing enough to feed yourself without actually paying out any money. Also, you don't need to go to hospitals and doctors and stuff, and get. And I will talk about that later on. But you already have everything you need to keep yourself in perfect health. You know, everything that you need is freely available. It's just that you weren't taught how to leverage it, how to use it. Yeah, and you were instead taught that you need to depend on doctors and pharmaceuticals and things like that. It's a lie, and you can go without it. And just doing all the things I've just said, you'd find that you've liberated most of the money that you spend, you know, on a month-to-month basis, which means then maybe you don't need that high-powered job that keeps you working, you know, 60, 70 hours a week. Maybe you can start taking something, you know, something part-time. Then you have more time with your family. You have more time for yourself to discover who you are. You know, it's, if you have the commitment to do something like this, you will find a way, and the universe will actually fall over itself to try and accommodate you. An example that most people can understand is that, for instance, if you and your wife decide to have a baby, okay, and you do it the left-brained way, and you get a piece of paper and you start jotting down how much it's going to cost you to have that baby. Yeah, so you total up everything you're going to have to pay out for, okay, and you do that, and you'll find there's no way on earth you're going to be able to afford to have a baby. Yeah, the costs are astronomical. The other way is to just go ahead and have the baby, and you'll find that you will make it. You will be able to cope. Yeah, it's you know, one way is doing it the way the system will have you do it. Work it out in terms of left brain, money, yeah, or go with the heart and say, we want a baby, and then the universe will make sure that you can do it.
Yes.
And so yeah, it's a question of having courage, because if you look at that list of what you got to pay out for, it's frightening. But if you have the courage to go, we're going to do it anyway, then you'll be rewarded by having all these impossible obstacles just move out of the way.
And your brain is freed up from having the stress and worry that, well, we need to have X amount of money before we can have a baby. You can have a baby today if you want to. That's what you want to do. Also, getting yourself out of the healthcare system and health insurance. I haven't had health insurance for years. I think it's ridiculous. And then, of course, we in the States anyway have the Obamacare situation where if you do not have health insurance, they still find a way to get you. You have to pay a penalty. But that's only if you decide you want to pay taxes. So that's a whole nother issue. You can refuse to do that too. It's really unconstitutional to pay taxes, and really forget about the Constitution. It's just wrong. That's not what we are here for. That's not who we are. So there's many ways to step out of the system, do what feels comfortable for you, and see how it makes you feel and how it improves your life. And the thing is, Dave, the only thing it will do will improve your life. It's not going to cause you anything but good.
Mm-hmm. As I said, it's always frightening stepping away from the norm. So yeah, it does take courage. But when you think about life, when you really stop, and most people don't, they just accept they've got to do what they've got to do. But when you stop and think about life, are you supposed to be working all this time doing something meaningless, and spending all that time away from the people and the things that you love to do? Yeah, is that what you're supposed to be doing until you're too infirm to continue working for somebody else and making them rich? What is that what life's all about? Yeah, when you start asking that question, then maybe then that's when your life will change. And I think that's what the midlife crisis is about. The midlife, I call it midlife awakening.
Yes.
When you first start to say, is this all there is? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And the answer is always no.
Right. Most people have that feeling of quiet desperation inside themselves. Even if they're in the matrix, caught up in the system, they do have that feeling. Maybe not when they're 18, but when they're older, and have been doing it for a while, slogging away, like you said, making somebody else rich, and maybe getting a fine salary, a great salary even. They're on what I call a treadmill existence. Not that there's anything wrong with exercising on a treadmill if you don't want to go outside or can't or something. I mean, a treadmill existence. You're walking and going nowhere, and you're just contributing to somebody who pretty much doesn't care about you, and a system that definitely doesn't care about you and essentially wants you dead. So get off the treadmill.
Well, unfortunately, most people get caught up by the bait and switch operation. Okay, we're all lured into whatever job we do by this fantasy of what it means. Okay, but when we get in the job, we realize that the fantasy doesn't match reality. So, a policeman, isn't there to serve and protect and help people. Now he's an enforcer, a tax collector. A doctor isn't a doctor anymore. Doesn't go into the job they go into the job to heal and save people's lives, but now they're just drug pushers. Every job you can name, you'll find that it's been corrupted into something less noble than the people went into it for, and you get locked in, and everybody feels it, even if they don't admit it to themselves, that they're doing stuff that they don't want to be doing. And people can find joy in what they're doing if they really, really try, but at the end of the day, you realize that you're doing wrong. You're doing wrong, and you're not helping yourself. When I was chasing money, I thought I was doing the best for my family. I was a provider, I was a breadwinner. So, obviously I had to do the best for my family and get the most I could get. But, what you end up doing is trading off your family for the money. I was working so many hours, I hardly saw my family. So what was I doing that for? You end up in this situation where, you're trying to do it for the family, but you're not there. So you're not doing anything good for your family, but you have to do, it's like
and you're keeping your family locked into the system by being a part of the system, because they see you as their role model, I guess, especially when you have children. That's what dad does. That's what I do. You know, I will too as well, go to college, get an education, and work for a company and make a lot of money and have nice things in a nice house. Not that there's anything really wrong with having a house. I'm not saying that. Your home is what you make it. Your home could be, you know, what you're living in now, or anything really. It doesn't. We need shelter. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
Who says that we have to live in this prescribed way? Who says that's the way we have to live? You know, who says you can't decide, you know what, let's get into this camper van and just drive around the world and stop where we want and meet people and do, you know, pick grapes or something, and, you know, let's why can't you do that? The point is, you can't. You're not allowed to. You have to live in a way that's sanctioned by the government. And when did that happen? When did we, you know, give up our ability to be us in order to be like everybody else who's too scared to be themselves? You know, this is the thing. When you stop and step back and think about it, you know, it's crazy what we're doing, and we don't know why we're doing it.
It's when we moved away from being an agrarian society, which is, I think, what we're supposed to be. And I think that circumstances are going to happen, whether man-made or natural, that are going to push us back, those who live, into something like that in the future. Do you feel the same way?
Yes. Well, I actually years ago wrote a book that I never ever published, but I wrote it, and it was about the way to heal society. And the answer was going back to resetting the human race to the last known working configuration, and that is an agrarian society, but sort of utilizing some of the things that we learned along the way. So I came up with this idea of self-sufficient houses that can, you know, recycle everything, water and waste, power itself, grow its own food, but share any resources with neighboring houses. So kind of like an internet kind of arrangement, so that the more houses that are in the system, the more there is to go around, rather than the way that we're living, where everything's generated centrally and it distributed downwards like a pyramid. And if anything happens to the producer, well, nobody gets anything. And the more people in that system, the less there is to go around. So I think we can do better than what we're doing now. And obviously we can, because this system wasn't designed for us.
Yes, indeed. It's a system based on scarcity and fear, and we are in it, and none of us are really happy. I'm not happy with that. Hey, maybe could you try, maybe I turn my volume down. What if you turn your volume down slowly?
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I'm not saying it's you. I turned mine down quite low. Maybe it's that.
Okay.
We'll see. Well, it's gone for now. Maybe our friend Mr. Eka will return. We'll have to kick him out again. By the way, it's allegedly Dave here on Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes, and D Murphy 25 is his YouTube channel, and he has a lot of great videos. The Biggest Lie, it's a 2-part series on the Flat Earth, and if you haven't subscribed to his channel, there's a lot of great stuff that's not just Flat Earth oriented, but those 2 videos, parts 1 and 2, are fantastic. And we've touched a little bit on the free man movements, and touched a little bit on distilled water. And you say that you eat fruit primarily, but now you're kind of parked outside your mother's place, and she's feeding you with all sorts of things. Are there certain foods when you're not eating food, or not just eating fruit, that you won't eat?
Well, most of it actually.
Yeah.
I don't eat meat or fish, dairy. I avoid heavy root vegetables, your sort of dense fibrous things, because you know, if you can't eat it without it being cooked, yeah, so that all the fibrous dense stuff is cooked out, then you shouldn't really be eating it. That's the way I see it. And because cooking as well is harmful to us. You know, we're the only species that cook our food, and when you do, it creates a cancerous, carcinogenic material called acrylamide that starts to form in cooked food.
It's
And when you eat,
plastic, basically, isn't it?
yeah,
It's basically plastic.
essentially, yeah. And when you eat cooked food, your body reacts as though you've been poisoned, and it creates what they call leukocytes, which is white blood cells, to combat the poison, which is the cooked food. But when you eat the raw versions of your food, it doesn't create leukocytes. Excuse me, I've just got a... While you're
Yes.
talking, no water, hang on.
I hate when that happens, when you're talking and you get like choking, but you've got your distilled water there. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so cooked food, I try not to have too much cooked food. I still do, you know, occasionally. I love mushrooms, so, you know, and sometimes chips. That's one of my sort of bad things. I know it's fibrous and it's cooked, but yeah, you gotta have some of your vice here and there. And
Yeah.
but my body is now very good at eliminating things, so so it doesn't really matter, because I know as soon as I eat something, I know it's literally coming out a matter of hours later.
Yes.
So
I'm the same with not eating any meat, fish, dairy, eggs, lobsters, none of that. So I primarily am, fruit is number one and vegetables too. But I do like potatoes that you mentioned, and I love mushrooms. And I know the root vegetable thing, not that mushrooms are root vegetables, but I feel fine when I do, and I feel fine when I eat cooked food. I feel mentally fine because my diet is so good otherwise that I know I'm doing not the best I can for my body, but the best I feel like I can do at the moment, because I still want to have those things. I grew up with those things. When you were working in New York, you ate the regular sort of American diet?
yes, I did. Every morning I'd have a ham, egg and Swiss, everything bagel, and a Starbucks caramel frappuccino, extra caramel. I called it the diabetes special. So I had that every single morning. It was my ritual, and I put on so much weight. It was unbelievable. I was 20 stone. I don't know what that is in pounds. I can never remember. But it's
I can't ever remember stone, so we're on the same page. You felt overweight. You probably didn't feel physically good, right?
No, but you know, I kind of thought that because most of my friends were quite large as well. You know, I didn't think it was anything unnatural, and so all the things that were wrong with me, I'd kind of accepted about myself. So I actually thought I was in quite good health, you know, which is crazy now. Look back on it, but yeah, it's when you say, well, for instance, I had an Achilles tendon operation, and I got nerve damage in my foot and pain up the back of my leg, but it was quite a horrible stabbing pain. Every 10 steps, perhaps, I get this pain, but it kind of fades into the background. You know, you accept it, you know it's there, and yeah, you don't react to it every time, and it just fades into the background. You accept it as being you. You don't really notice it until it's gone, and that's what happened when I started on some of these therapies.
Well, some of the therapies that you've done, and we're going to talk a little bit about your book called The Human Body Owner's Workshop Manual, and just other things that you've done. Have you done anything like hydrogen peroxide therapy or any of those other treatments? I have.
Yeah, I started off with those. I was looking for something that, you know, alternative. So I started with oil pulling. I don't know if you come across that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I still do it, and that and the hydrogen peroxide for me they're wonderful. I recommend anybody look them up. But go ahead.
Yeah. So oil pulling is, you know, you get a tablespoonful of you know, I use coconut oil or olive oil, whatever, and you literally put it in your mouth and swish it around for 20 minutes. and literally that essentially pulls all the toxins out of your blood. And yes, it's very powerful for a great many things. I also tried a hydrogen peroxide. Now with hydrogen peroxide, you get 35% food grade hydrogen peroxide. And you start off on a protocol where you would put 3 drops in a glass of water, distilled water preferably. And every day you would increase the dosage by 1 drop, and slowly build up to a kind of maintenance into it, because the hydrogen peroxide will burn you. It will oxidize your skin, you know, but it won't harm you. In fact, it will literally just rust your skin. And when you kind of rub that rust off, you find fresh, healthy skin underneath. But so it won't actually harm you. Yeah, you have to kind of go up slowly to get your body accustomed to it. And the thing about it is that it's actually water with 1 extra oxygen atom added, so that 1 pint of hydrogen peroxide has 9 pints of oxygen in it. And so when you drink this hydrogen peroxide, you literally flood your body with oxygen, and nothing bad can actually live in your body if it's like got lots of oxygen there. So yeah, it's very powerful. I found that I lost my allergies to cats and dogs through hydrogen peroxide.
That's fantastic. I have cats, and I've met a few people in my life who were allergic to them, and that will be something I will recommend to them in the future. But for those interested in it, it worked for you, right?
Yeah. But I've got a better one now.
Oh, you do? Well, I just wanted to let people know that you can't just go to your grocery store and just buy hydrogen peroxide that you might use for wound care. It has to be, like Dave said, 35% food grade hydrogen peroxide. And I've looked in stores in the States, and you can't purchase it, but I went on Amazon and ordered it. And then you get a little glass dropper bottle, and then you can put the drops in the water and follow a protocol that you can find online in various books. But and of course I use coconut oil too for oil pulling. And by the way, this is Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes. Obviously this seems unrelated to Flat Earth, but in a way it is. My guest today is allegedly Dave, and you may know him from his YouTube channel, which is Dean Murphy 25, and his 2 very powerful videos, 1 and 2 of The Biggest Lie of All, and those are flat earth oriented. And we're just talking about the other hot potatoes aspect, things that people don't want to touch, they don't want to think about, they're just kind of too hot to handle. And some of these things, people are, oil pulling, that's crazy. Drinking hydrogen peroxide, crazy. Stopping paying health care or quitting my job, you're insane. Well, these things are not insane. This is how we pull ourselves out of the matrix. Doesn't mean you have to do it all today, but it's something that you should consider doing some of these things, because if you're watching this channel, you are interested in improving yourself, the life of your family and those you love, and potentially other people who you don't even know. One of the ways is to start doing these things and then spread the word any way you know how. This is my particular way I've picked, and Dave has his ways. So what's a better way, Dave?
Okay, well, the better way is the most controversial one, and it's urine therapy. And that is the process of drinking your own urine and washing in it. It's a kind of 2-step process, because when you drink your urine, one of the things it does is it pushes out toxins in your body. It stimulates the body to dump toxins. And when you wash your body with urine, it stimulates your skin, which is the biggest toxic eliminator of the body. It stimulates the skin to dump toxins as well. So it's a kind of push-pull action, literally all aimed at dumping toxins that you're carrying. It does a whole lot of other things as well. It's I'll step back and say what it actually is, because most people are under the impression that your urine is a dirty waste product. Okay, wrong. What's going on in your body is that the blood goes to your liver, and your liver screens out all the waste products, all the pathogens and viruses and anything that shouldn't be in your blood. It'll get screened out by your liver. And the purified blood goes to your kidneys, and your kidneys are there to keep your blood in perfect balance. So if you've got too much water in your blood, then the excess water will be siphoned off to your bladder. If you've got excess vitamin C, that goes to your bladder. Excess minerals, hormones, enzymes, all the good stuff in your blood. If you've got too much of it, it will get siphoned off into your bladder. And while it's in your bladder, your body realizes that sometimes it needs some of that stuff it's got stored there. So many people have had the experience where they've wanted to go to the toilet, dying to go, and they get distracted, and an hour later they think, oh, I don't need to go anymore. That's because while you were distracted, your body realized it could use some of that stuff and reabsorbed it and relieve the pressure that was on your bladder. And so when you take it back in, literally you're giving your body everything that it needs without the overhead, the expensive overhead of manufacturing it. So you free up lots of energy that way. And because it's already pre-digested, it's already been through you, your body doesn't need to it doesn't need to go through the digestive system. It literally goes straight in you, and you get a rush of energy and a feeling of well-being, minutes after taking it. It's quite amazing. One tip for everybody: if you have got a late night and you want to stay awake, drink a glass of your wee before you go out, and you'll be flying all night.
Wow.
Yes.
It's sort of sounds like in a way a drug, a natural drug. That's something that's built into the way our body works to make us feel good. We just have been taught was disgusting or weird.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's absolutely sterile when it comes out. So it's one of the cleanest things on the planet, essentially. And it's packed full of, everything that your body needs in exactly the right proportions, and keyed exactly to you and your body. It's also packed solid with stem cells. And stem cells are those cells that can become anything in your body. So they literally roam around your body looking for things to repair. And your urine's packed solid with it. So consequently, if you, for instance, you cut yourself, you have a deep cut that you would need stitches for, if you soak a rag with your urine, slap it on the wound, wrap it with cling film or saran wrap, and 3 days later, literally, that wound will be healed without a trace. Same with third-degree burns. You, again, put a urine-soaked rag on the burn and keep it moist. First thing will happen, within a few minutes, the pain will disappear. And within 3 days, the wound will be healed up without a trace. It's amazing stuff.
What about for your skin, your facial skin?
Right. Well, most women have already used it without knowing, because all face creams and some of these products, they all have urine in them.
Yeah.
It'll be disguised as urea or uric acid or something, just to hide the fact that it's horse urine or pig's urine that's in there. Obviously, your own urine is better for you.
Right.
And it's also a trick that supermodels use. They literally use their own urine to keep their faces, wrinkle free. So
I have been taught, just through years of being vegan, to look on labels and see urea or uric acid back on the shelf. But I can use my own urine now,
yes,
instead of using that from an animal in those products. I don't really need any products. I mean, for me, for my skin, all I really need is urine, which is something I'm going to try, and coconut oil, really. I mean, that acts as a sunscreen if you need it, and I do because I'm pretty pale. A moisturizer, and of course for the oil pulling, good for moisturizing your lips. I don't know, the things we really need when it comes to caring for our body are just knowledge, really.
Yes, it is just knowledge. I mean, as I said, urine is literally I don't like using the word cure, because there's another meaning to the word cure, which is the opposite to what you think it is. The other meaning of cure is preserve, as in cure meat. So when you're saying, I want to cure this, you're saying I want to preserve it. So yeah, just a little side. But yes, a heal all. Okay, it will heal everything that's wrong with you. If, for instance, I did say about allergies. Okay, if you have an allergic reaction, as soon as you start getting the symptoms, wait 10 seconds, collect your urine, put 10 drops under your tongue, and you'll find that the allergic reaction will subside within 10 minutes usually. And if it hangs around, then every hour put 10 drops under your tongue, and it will go away. And if you keep doing that, you'll no longer be allergic to anything. That's one way. Yeah, there's so many uses. It's unbelievable. And
it's basically free. I would imagine, though, that the urine that you would be collecting in the morning, because that's the used for when you do urine therapy, not urine later in the day. I must have an emergency, like a allergic, would be best if you ate a pure diet. Do you agree with that?
I missed that. You kind of broke up there.
I know, there was all that echo. I don't know where it's coming from. That the urine that you would collect early in the morning to use for this urine protocol is best. The first urine of the morning is best to be used. But I've totally lost what I said because the echo just totally threw me off. Sorry about that. If you ate a pure diet, your urine would be better and cleaner. Is that true?
It is true. What you'll find is that your body will tell you what you should be eating, because if you eat something that your body doesn't agree with, you'll taste it immediately in your urine, and you'll know, well, you know what, I don't think I'll eat that anymore. And it will steer you towards foods that your body likes. And when your body gets really, really clean, your urine will taste of coconut water. Absolutely delicious coconut water. I don't know what I did right, but I had it for a week, where it was the most delicious coconut water, and I couldn't wait for the next lot, it's as your diet improves, your urine will improve in quality.
Tell us a little bit about how your urine has a lot in common with plasma.
Well, it's more than a lot in common. It actually is blood plasma. If you get a blood sample taken and they stand it up in a test tube, the red blood cells will sink to the bottom, and you're left with that yellowish liquid, which is blood plasma. And that literally is your urine. In fact, the medical term for urine is plasma ultrafiltrate, ultra-filtered blood plasma. So your urine cannot hurt you in any way. It can't be toxic, because if it is, then you'd already be dead, because it's literally your blood. Yeah, and all the life-giving things in your blood, it's a way of getting all that life-giving essence from the inside to the outside, where you can use it. So it's an amazing system. It's
distilled by your own body, really.
Absolutely distilled in a different way to the way we do it mechanically, but your kidneys are the best distiller in the world. So it's distilled water with benefits.
What would somebody who is facing something like cancer or heart issues, would they would probably benefit from getting off medications, of course, because if they're drinking their urine and they're taking all of these toxic pharmaceuticals, I mean, that would be counterproductive. They would need to get off these things first, right?
Well, according to the Cancer Act 1939, I'm not allowed to say anything about cancer. I'm not allowed to say that, I would not take any chemotherapy, radiotherapy, or surgery, and I'm not allowed to say that if you absolutely did nothing about your cancer, you'd live 4 times as long with a better quality of life. I'm not allowed to say that, so I'm not going to say that.
Yes, and I'm not allowed to agree with you, and I'm not going to agree with you.
Yeah, don't. Best you don't, yeah? I'm not allowed to say that, Yeah, you can heal yourself of cancer with just a diet, with just change of diet. If you stay away from all acidic foods, literally go to a fruit diet, and you know, and fast as well to give your body the energy to start healing itself. I'm not allowed to say that, so I won't say that. Urine therapy. I'm also not allowed to tell you that urine therapy will also heal cancer, so I won't say that. Um, and also distilled water, obviously. You know, again, you're clearing out and all the carcinogens, and dumping toxins. That's the key part here, to dump toxins. But yeah, that's something I can't say, so I'm not gonna go there.
So I'm glad you've not said any of those things were any good. So we're totally
No.
covered. Well, in your book that we've talked about, the Human Body Owner's Manual Workshop, Dave, by the way, this is allegedly Dave D. Murphy 25 YouTube channel, Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes, the show. I'm Patricia Steere. In your book, do you go over these things? So if somebody were to purchase your book, they'd learn about what we've been talking about today?
Yes, absolutely. It's based on this idea, the idea that was completely different from the medical establishment's view of the body. That the body is absolutely perfect. You know, under ideal circumstances, the body needs nothing external for it to work perfectly throughout its entire extended lifespan. The only problem is that we do exactly the wrong things because we're not taught how the body is supposed to work. So everything in my book is non-medicinal. There's no medicine in it whatsoever. And so there's no practicing medicine, no practicing whatsoever. Yeah, we're just doing. Okay, and what we're doing in there is two things basically. One is allowing the body to have the energy to do its work, and the second one is assisting the body in doing what it's actually doing. That's it. Yeah. What the medical system that we're suffering under does the opposite. Okay. The way pharmaceuticals tend to work is that, let's say you have a problem with your elbow, you've got a pain in your elbow, so you take a pharmaceutical painkiller. So what that painkiller is a poison, right? The pain in your elbow is your body saying, I'm dealing with a problem in your elbow. Yeah, I'm actually dealing with it. That's what the pain is. I'm actually working on it. Okay, rest it up. Don't give me too many bumps, and I'll repair it for you good as new. Okay, when you take the poison, the body realizes now you've ingested a more acute problem. You've created this new acute problem, and now it switches resources away from the elbow to now deal with the poison. Okay, you can't feel any pain in your elbow anymore because the symptom has been dealt with, but now your body's having to deal with the poison and deal with the cause of the problem in your elbow. And you go ahead working away, thinking that nothing's wrong with your elbow and putting strain and making the problem worse.
Yes.
So you can see that we do exactly the wrong thing, and we just literally make the problems worse.
Look at the advertisements we have on television and as shown in movies and magazines for all the different painkillers you can buy. It says the thing people do the minute they have a little pain, they go out and buy a painkiller and pop some pills, or they use pharmaceutical drugs, really hardcore versions of that. And you're, like you said, poisoning your body, and then the pain is gone, but the problem still persists, but your body's rushing off to deal with the poisons and not the problem, and it could probably take care of that problem on its own. We're doing so many crazy things.
It will take care of itself. I liken the allopathic medicine medical system to taking your car to a garage because the engine warning lights come on, and the mechanic taking the bulb out. The symptoms gone, yeah, you know, all looks great because there's no light flashing, but the problem's still there, and later that problem is going to emerge in some more catastrophic way. And when you take it back to the mechanic, he's going to say, oh no, that's a totally different issue, don't worry about it, it's something totally different. So that's what happens when you go to the doctor. He'll give you a symptom suppressant. You'll think the problem's going away, and literally it's getting worse and worse, but you're not aware of it, and until it emerges as another more catastrophic problem, which the doctor will say is totally unrelated.
They always say everything's totally unrelated, but if you're logical and look back at it, you can see it's all related, because everything is related. We are related to the rocks, to the trees, to each other, to the animals. It's all one, really. So we need to face that fact for sure. What about vaccines? Oh, sorry. You go ahead first.
There's only one illness. There's no such thing as all these separate diseases. There's only one illness, and that's called bad health. It just manifests in different ways. So it's not this myriad of problems. And this is why the flat Earth is impossible. This is why the flat Earth is very important. Okay, it's because we've been given this view of who we are. Okay, because of the Big Bang theory, the theory of evolution, the theory of the ball Earth. Okay, all of those together combined show us that we're accidental, unimportant microbes on a speck of dust. Okay, so nothing here matters. You know, it doesn't matter if they inject us with stuff and they massacre millions. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. GMO, genetically modifying everything in our world. It doesn't matter. It was all accident anyway. Yeah. And I've lost my train of thought now.
Oh, no, what you're saying fit in perfectly. I totally understand what you're saying. And, you know, it's hard to do a Google Hangout because it seems like we're interrupting each other, but if we were in the same room, we wouldn't be. It's just this delay on these Hangouts. But yeah, vaccines I mentioned as well, too.
Right.
I don't know about in Turkey where you are, but in the United States and in general, it's a huge issue. And just straight up government saying, if you don't inject your child with these known poisons, your child won't be allowed to participate in society. And it's getting kind of crazy. You see that?
It's mandatory poisoning. That's what it is, you know, and especially when you say this Obamacare means that, you know, you cannot get out of being poisoned, you know, whether you like it or not, you must take your poison. That's that. I mean, why hasn't America gone into open revolt over that alone? I don't know. Vaccines have never ever worked. There's no evidence whatsoever that have ever is that enough feathers? Maybe, I don't know. Ever worked. Okay. In my book I showed charts of the death rate of every single, you know, or a whole range of diseases, and you can see where the vaccine has been introduced, and when the vaccine is introduced, the curve is already falling, already sort of, it's already, you know, gone. The vaccine comes along after the fact and then claims responsibility for saving everybody, and it's not true.
And then there's the PR that says if you're an anti-vaxxer, you're painted as crazy, the same as if you believe the Earth is flat or if you believe the moon landings never happened. If you don't buy into the system, they make fun of you and belittle you, and it makes it hard for the average person who feels deep in their heart that they don't want to give their child, their newborn, these crazy level of vaccines that didn't exist when I was a child. We didn't have that many. It makes it quite hard for the parent, especially when they're faced with the nurse or doctor in the white coat, you know, holding their newborn baby. It's quite a quandary. You've got to be strong to stand up to that.
Yeah. I was guilty of that as well. Before I woke up, my daughter was told that she had to have the Gardasil cervical cancer vaccine, and the school was saying no, she can't go to school without it. You know, I don't understand why now, but you know, and we fell for it. We said, oh, okay, I suppose we better. She had the first shot, and she was desperately ill after it. And we took her to the hospital, and they said, "Oh no, it's okay. The second shot will clear that up." And we're like,
What?
"Okay, all right then." So we took her for the second shot. Her arm swelled up, and she got even sicker. We had to rush her to the hospital this time, and they said, "It's okay, don't worry about it. The third shot will clear that up." And we were like, "Really? Okay then." And she went for the third shot. She passed out, and her arms swelled up again, and she had a fever, and she was in hospital again over it. And I feel really guilty even now to think that she went through all that, and because of my ignorance, and and who knows what. I don't even want to say this. Who knows what after effects that will have later on?
Scary. They didn't have that when I was a teenage girl, and I remember reading about it and thinking originally, a long time ago, before I woke up, oh, if I had a daughter, I would get that for her. So don't feel guilty. And no one who's watching this who's fallen prey to that and had their children vaccinated, or their elder daughters vaccinated with the Gardasil thing, because we didn't know. Now we know, and we should speak out about it, especially to people who have babies now and are having teenage daughters facing that. Well, you really can't.
People have died now from it and been permanently kind of maimed because of it. That's terrible. So in my book, I put a couple of letters and approaches to deal with doctors trying to force a vaccine on you. So basically, these letters put the responsibility back on the doctor. So essentially, you're saying, I'm happy to take your vaccine if you can prove to me that it's entirely safe. There are clinical studies that show that vaccines are effective. That the ingredients are non-harmful, all that sort of thing, and also a liability statement. So the doctor has to sign. I examine the patient. The patient is healthy, if this patient develops any of the following diseases, then I take complete liability and complete responsibility for it. So yeah, you say, I'm happy to take it, just sign these and give them back to me, and I'll take the jab right now. It's a way, obviously they've got a bag of tricks to try and coerce you to taking it, but if you stand firm and say, look, I'll take it right now, you just have to sign this, and if it's absolutely safe, then you won't mind signing it, will you?
It's the free man approach, actually.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of like the movie Astronauts Gone Wild, where the astronauts of the Apollo missions were asked to swear on the Bible, and they all basically ran away or punched. They wouldn't swear on the Bible, just like there will be no doctors who you show those forms to that you can find in your book who are going to go, sure, I'll sign. Yeah, no problem. Never. But what will be the repercussions? Will your child be allowed into school? Well, homeschooling might be the option that you need to do. And I know that sounds crazy, easy for me to say, but
even so, even in that case, if you get past the doctor in a school, the school says no, you can't. Well, form another letter. If you look at the letter and you can see how it's approaching the situation, you can write another letter, a more targeted one at the school, to put the onus on them to prove that this vaccine is necessary, this vaccine is safe, and so on, and put the onus back on them to prove, and put the liability on them to prove, to say that if you force me to get my child to take a vaccination, and she is injured by it, then you take responsibility because you're forcing me to do so. Say, okay, I'm happy to do it. Sign this and I'll do it.
It's great. I love it. And this all can be found in your book. A lot of people what will be said to them was, well, herd immunity. That's just made up words. So don't fall for it. Definitely don't.
Put that in the letter. Prove to me that this is real. Prove to me that somehow, if she's unvaccinated and everyone else is vaccinated, how will that affect anybody? So,
I've talked to people who are pro-vaccine, and they will argue, and they'll come up with some things that sound logical, and they'll fight and show charts and graphs and link videos full of anger because your unvaccinated children are putting my vaccinated children at risk, and you're a bad mother. I don't speak for myself because as I said, I don't have children, but I've seen these sorts of things online, and I just feel bad for anybody who's in that situation and has to face this sort of an angry mob with, pitchforks and fire. It's what
doesn't matter. Have them take responsibility for it. Have them take liability. Yes, okay. If you're going to force me, if you want, take liability for it. You take responsibility if anything goes wrong. Yeah, then you'll find that those people will shut up and go away if they have to take financial responsibility for it. Yeah, it's all very well saying all this stuff, but if you put your money where your mouth is, they'll bugger off. Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
I said that.
that makes sense. Go with the bottom line, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, the whole thing's a mess. Okay, so you can heal your body to some degree. Heal might not be the right word. Would that be the right word? Not cure, heal. That works.
Yes.
With varying therapies that we've talked about today and eating a good, pure diet. I personally feel that staying away from animal products is good for your body, but also good for your, for lack of a better term, spirit. How do you feel about that?
I would agree because there's more going on than we realize here. If you understand that people who've got transplants of organs, they start taking on the traits of the donor. Okay, so it turns out that all your organs have self receptors that receive, who you are. So if you take a donor's heart, that heart has still got the self receptors of the original donor, and you will start to manifest the traits of that donor. It's been shown time and time again. Now, if you think about the foods, the meats that people eat, okay, cows, sheep, chickens, fish. Well, there's characteristics of those animals that are very desirable for a controlling class. Sheep, do what they're told, follow the leader. Cows are docile, chickens, cowardly, run from anything. Fish, travel around in schools, do what, so can you see, if you start taking on the traits of the animals, plus most of these animals are killed in such a horrific way that terrifies the animals, so they die producing massive amounts of fear hormones. Well, those fear hormones don't just stay in the animal. If you ingest them, well, you're taking in some of these fear hormones as well. There's a lot more going on energetically than meets the eye. So just in general, we don't need to eat meat. Those people who bleat on about how we need protein, don't get it, because the human body creates all the protein it needs. It does it internally. You don't need to give it protein. The proof of it is, a beefsteak is supposedly packed with protein, but the animal the beefsteak comes from eats grass. So how does that work? How is it that the biggest, most powerful animals in the jungle, the elephant, the rhino, and the gorilla, are all vegetarians? So no, you don't need to feed your body protein. You produce protein, if you need it. That's it.
We have excess protein that's been pushed on us by the powers that be, and they're doing that on purpose, putting on products now with extra protein or packed with protein. The amount of protein that we need is very small, and you don't need to be eating protein powders, whether or not they're dairy-based or even soy or almond or you don't need protein powders. I've been vegan for a while, and I don't supplement protein. I don't look for foods that have protein in them. I get protein naturally from the fruits and vegetables that I eat, and my body produces its own protein. But and I'm healthy and thin, and I don't have any health issues whatsoever.
Hmm.
So the protein myth, and there's even books on it, really needs to be dispelled. It's just another aspect of the control system that they've got us under. We've all been brainwashed. I was brainwashed. My mother used to tell me, you need to eat this cheese for protein, this
Hmm.
meat or chicken. And I did because my mom was smart and, a good person. Of course I'm going to do what she said. We need to break out of all of this. It's
Well,
like the movie The Matrix.
yeah, it goes back to this idea of being told stuff as a kid and not re-examining it when we're adults. So yes, you're told, oh, you need to eat cheese for protein, you need to eat cheese for calcium and milk for calcium and all this stuff. And it's not true, but we never re-examine it when we're adults.
And
So yeah, but you said you take a little protein, your body needs a little. No, your body needs no protein. Okay. Um, trees, for instance, we know about the idea of photosynthesis. Yeah, the trees condense the materials it needs from the sunlight. It doesn't take nutrients as such from the ground. Otherwise, all those redwoods you see in California would be massive depressions in the ground, wouldn't they? From all the stuff that we have to take up from the ground to build themselves. No, they don't take anything from the ground. That was proved back in the 17th century. And we, likewise, we don't take anything in that we need. Yeah, we also condense everything, every part of our material needs from the cosmic radiation that hits us. Okay, literally, it's like water vapor, invisible water vapor in the air, condensing into water and then condensing further into ice. Yeah, it's invisible. Now it's condensed into a liquid and then it's condensed into a solid. We do that internally with every substance that our body needs. The only problem is when we eat something or we go into, we have a habit or we go into an environment that's bad, it forces our body to react, and it reacts by shutting down the production of one thing or increasing the production of another, causes an imbalance, which is only temporary. But we feel symptoms, so we get a symptom suppressant, which causes other problems, and then we end up on that treadmill.
so right now you're outside of where your mother lives, and you said she's feeding you well, but generally you're a fruitarian or a breatharian, depending upon if you're doing something for your body or not. But right now you're eating more different sorts of foods. After you leave where your mom is and then kind of drive somewhere else when you're more on your own, are you going to do something to kind of shake your body up, like a cleanse or fast or something like that?
Well, as I said, generally, my body is really good at eliminating stuff anyway, so I don't worry too much about that. I'm doing a few other experiments actually. So I'm going to do another breatharian experiment eventually. I'm going to do it for a year, so I'm not going to eat anything for a year. Now, the experiment I'm doing at the moment is sleep deprivation. I did a kind of experiment when I was 18, just to see how long I could stay awake, and I lasted 5 days. And at the end of the 5 days, I was hallucinating, I was paranoid, I had all sorts of strange things happening to me. So I started again. I did a 7-day sleep deprivation experiment, and I combined it with urine fasting. I thought the aim was to try and open up the right-hand hemisphere of the brain, because apparently when you are sleep deprived, your left hand shuts down and your right hand starts to take over. And I wanted to see if I can open that up. So on urine fasting and sleep deprivation, 7 days, I actually went the whole 7 days with no effects whatsoever. Nothing, no negative or positive effects. I just did it, so I thought, well, must be the urine keeping me, stable. So I did a second experiment as a control where I sort of ate and drunk as normal. I went another 7 days, no effects whatsoever. So I'm really confused at this point. I'm going to be embarking on a 14-day sleep deprivation experiment and see what happens then.
Well, you've got a couple of videos on the D Murphy 25 YouTube channel that you've got, aside from the Flat Earth, the Biggest Lie 1 and 2, and other videos. And it shows some breatharian varying, you know, here I am on day 17 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're explaining what you're doing. And for a while, in one of your videos, you were just strictly breatharian. You weren't drinking water, but then you decided to drink water. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, the original experiment was that I wasn't going to drink or eat anything for a year, like I was just explaining. And I'd spent a whole year before working my way to that point. So I started off as a vegetarian. I went down to vegan, then raw vegan, then fruitarian, and then liquidarian, and then started the experiment. The problem is I didn't. What I didn't do was prepare not to drink. So I didn't really ramp down the amount I was drinking. So I started the experiment not eating or drinking. And for the first 10 days or 9 days, it was fine. In fact, it was more than fine. What I found was that since I wasn't putting anything in my stomach, and this is what I believe is going on, my instinct and my intuition went straight through the roof. I was understanding things. I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and lie in bed for 4 hours, just thinking of stuff and getting answers immediately, making connections immediately, you know, linking, you know, really disparate stuff and going, oh, I get it now, and coming up with ideas, and it was just like an amazing creative rush. And I think it's because it's been revealed that your stomach, your gut, has brain cells in it, and this idea of a gut feeling is real. It's your gut thinking, but it doesn't think in the same way as your mind does. It thinks in terms of intuition, when you're eating all the time, then you've repurposed that gut in digestion, so it can't think essentially because it's working too hard. But when you stop, then it's able to think, it seems. And literally my creative bursts at 4 o'clock in the morning were just, you know, evidence of that. And it started when I got to day 10. I decided to do a walk, a 12-mile walk to the nearest town and back, across fields and up hills and stuff. And I started off, and I got I start off with a run. So I started running, and I started losing energy, and I was like, wow, what's going on? So I started walking, and my walking got really hard, and I stopped, and I thought, well, what shall I do? And my mind said, carry on, it's all right, it'll pass, you know, you're strong, you know, this is helping you. But my intuition said, turn around, go get some water. So
maybe that was your stomach thinking.
Yes, I think it was. And I chose to turn around and get some water. And luckily I did, because I collapsed just as I got to the water tap. I literally, my legs just buckled under me, and I absorbed something like, I must have been a gallon of water. I just absorbed it, just soaked it up. And then I rested for a little while, and then I set off on my walk again, managed to get there. And when I got there, I was still parched. So I literally, another 2 liters of water and coconut water I ended up getting, and again just soaked it up. So yeah, I got very dehydrated, and people said that I looked like I turned into a prune or something.
Interesting. Well, coconut water is the only thing that you can give babies as a replacement for breast milk. Although people give, you know,
And blood.
Hmm?
And blood.
Oh, and blood. Yes, yes, I
Yes.
forgot about that.
Mm.
Yes. So coconut water is a great thing, and it's actually distilled by the coconut, really. So it's
Mhm.
another form of distilled water. These things are right in front of our eyes, and nature has been showing us the way to be, and our own bodies have. But we're so shut down, and I'm saying I'm included in that, by all the mainstream stuff and all the propaganda and brainwashing, and we've become. I used to use the word sheeple because that's what I've been saying for years, but I changed that to sleeple. We're sleeping, and we need to wake up. Uh, a lot of people have been talking about, Dave, about things happening at the end of the month and maybe a huge change in store for all of us on this flat Earth. What are your thoughts on what might happen and an outcome that what outcome you foresee? And have you been feeling this too? I mean, maybe you don't know, maybe you haven't been. I've been feeling it for quite a while.
Yeah, I've been feeling it. And first of all, I'll just say that I don't use sheeple or sleeple. They're all vaguely sort of angry and sort of sort
True.
of accusative. We were all sheeple at one point, yeah. But I
Yes.
use muggle from Harry Potter.
Oh, okay.
It just means non-magical folk.
Interesting.
They haven't found the magic yet, but with this amazing world that we've discovered, whether it's horrible or whatever, it's still amazing. It's been hidden in front of us all this time. It's amazing. So I call them muggles. It's
All
not. It's
right.
not.
Point taken.
Um,
Before we
yeah.
continue, can you? I know this may cause echo. Can you now turn your mic up slightly? It seems like
No, I haven't. But maybe
no.
I'm
But
being
could you?
louder.
Could you try to?
How's
Maybe.
that?
I guess it's good. I just don't want my voice to be louder than yours. And these Google Hangouts, there's not that many ways to finesse it and control it. So
Oh, okay.
anyway, all right. So back to the feeling that both
September.
you and I have had, that things, I've had it for quite some time, that things aren't not just what we have been told, that things are changing and they're coming to a head.
Yeah. Well, last year, at the end of last year, I had the feeling that 2016 was going to be the year, where the brown stuff hits the air conditioning unit. Okay, and as the year went on, it started to refine. I started to feel, well, actually, I think it is going to be 2015. And then, by about March, I thought, yeah, it's the end. It's the kind of end of 2015, not the very end, but sort of near the end. And as the year went on, it just kept refining down to September, and then the end of September. And I don't know why. It wasn't that I was seeing a lot of things. That yes, I was seeing. Somebody would say, "Oh yeah, the Pope is coming to America for the very first time in September." I was like, "Oh, okay." And little snippets like that would sort of make me feel, well, okay, it all seems to be converging on a certain time of the year. So and I was actually shocked when I started seeing people saying, what, September 23rd, September, and I was like, what? How did they know? How did they know I was thinking that it was going to be? Yeah. Or maybe it is a bit of a psyop, and they've been just drip feeding us ideas. But the thing that's made me sit up and think about it is that the flat Earth has got me reading the Bible, and not just the Roman Catholic Bible, which has been hacked to pieces and edited and all and whatever, to give you a completely wrong impression of what's going on. But the King James Bible, the Book of Enoch, all the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Apocrypha, if you loads of ancient texts, if you put them all together, a story emerges. And the stories that come out of it tell you that there's a time, it's going to be essentially Judgment Day, and it's going to follow 4 blood moons, and it's going to be at a certain time. Yeah, and again, that lines up. Something else that lines up is in Revelations 9. I'm certainly not a Bible basher because I'm starting to remember all these biblical references.
Well, it makes sense because the flat earth took me from being, as we both said, I was a semi-atheist, you were an atheist, to somebody who believes in a creator, and it got me interested in the Bible in a way that hadn't ever really happened before. So, you know, really continue, because I think many of us are on the same page as you.
Yeah. The clincher for me is CERN. Right? That's the one that does it for me, because in the Bible it says that in the last days, you know, a key will be turned and a gateway will be unlocked, and Apollyon, the destroyer, will issue forth from the bottomless pit with the fallen angels and the demons to torment man, and then eventually kill a third and whatever. Yeah, this whole biblical event. Okay. Then you find out about CERN and find out that on September 23rd, they're going to do the largest experiment they've ever done, even though the point of the experiment has already been proved. They've already found the particle they were looking for. Yeah, they've already found it, yet they're putting through 14 tera electron volts through CERN, through the Large Hadron Collider, more power than they've ever put through it, which essentially will rip a hole through the fabric of our universe. They even say that we're trying to open a gateway. Okay. Then you find out that right in the middle of CERN, the town that's right in the middle of CERN, and I can't pronounce the name of it, but it used to be called a Polyocum or something, which is a town that was dedicated to Apollyon and is likely to be the entrance to the bottomless pit that's talked about in the Bible. So on this prophetic day that's pointed to in the Bible as being Judgment Day, CERN is going to open a dimensional gateway right above the Temple of Apollyon, who is supposedly going to come out of it.
It's almost a joke. And then the statue of Kali, the destroyer.
Exactly, Kali the destroyer. You know,
they're joking with us. I mean, this is just it's in our faces again, and it's quite frightening. But then again, I'm not afraid to die either. That part. I guess I'm afraid of pain, like we all are, but pain only means you're still here in the game. So, and sometimes I think this is a game.
More to me is that, okay, well, if there's a creator, as Kent Hovind said, if there's a creator, we'd better find out who he is and what he wants and do whatever it is he wants us to do. Yeah, that's what it means more to me, that, okay, if all this is real, then he gave us a set of instructions, and we've not been following them. So you know what? It's time that we turn away from this system, which is totally satanic and legalizes all the things that we're told not to do. They're all legal now, in this system. So, we all steal, it's okay to nick a pencil sharpener from work, we all lie because little white lies are okay. We all do all these things that we've been told not to do. So that's why I think it's relevant, because it seems like all this is lining up. The financial systems, the whole thing in China, devaluing and wiping $1 trillion off the map. The Dow Jones, the stock market in America, diving more than it did in the during the Depression. It seems also that America is and China are engaged in one of those silent wars, or quiet wars with silent weapons. Those explosions. There's been 4 of them now in China.
Inexplicable, really.
Well, if you examine that one in Tianjin, that is impossible to be. You can't explain it with anything conventional, because you know, as a former firefighter, you know that if something is flammable, yeah, and it explodes, it will take up anything else that's flammable at the same time. And if anything survives it, then the explosion will be smaller as that stuff, what's remaining, explodes and uses up that fuel, and so on and so on. But what we saw there was a massive explosion. The initial one was massive because you could see a tower block next to it, and it was over the tower block. So it was a huge explosion, followed by a multi-kiloton, what would you'd call a nuclear explosion, and then followed by an even bigger one. That doesn't work. That doesn't happen. This was a bomb. This was some kind of weapon, whether it was directed energy or some other, you know, high explosive bomb. And there's been 4 of them so far.
And I was thinking 9/11 when I saw that. I was thinking some kind of weapon, something that they've worked on that's even better. You know what I'm saying? More powerful or than what was used for that. And it's not what we've been told again.
No. And you've got in America, in California, you've got this inexplicable drought and wildfires raging across that part of the country. So we know that they've got weather weapons. So what if China and America are already engaged in one of those quiet wars where China's using their weather weapons against you know, the west coast of America, and America is using their directed energy weapons against places in China? I mean, they could do that without us knowing.
Yeah. Well, just like in the book 1984, there was a war that never ended, that just was sort of background noise in people's lives. Not like wars that we have read about in history. Whether or not history is real is another story, as we had discussed earlier. But, you know, there aren't bombs falling on my roof or your roof right now. Not that kind of war. But like you said, a silent war, like in 1984.
I think it will. It's designed to escalate into a conventional one, because if you think they want a world war to happen, yeah,
yes,
and it's going to happen, it's going to start in the Middle East. Well, if it starts in the Middle East, well, why should China get involved? Well, you know, they wouldn't, but they would if they're being attacked by America, and they're you know, I think they're being attacked by America now as a prelude for, you know, a conflict starting in the Middle East and drawing in China and then drawing in Russia and drawing in everybody else to be that final world war that they want.
Yes.
So I think it's going to be very, very interesting, if not extremely frightening for the Muggles, who have no idea that any of this is happening.
Yes, I've tried to talk to people about it before. I've been trying to talk to people about this in my personal life for several years. And they'll jokingly send me a text like, "When's World War III starting?" And I'll respond, "It's underway now. It's going on right now." And they're like, "No, I see that in the news." Like, eventually you will, but it's happening right now.
Yeah.
So,
the fake Jews in Israel right now, and they are fake. They're not Jews. They're not people of Judea. They've never set foot in that country before 1948. Yeah, they are ready to run to the Ukraine. You know, there was this news story saying that Ukraine will honor, you know, Israeli passports, you know, or something like that. That you know, they're welcome. You know, it's setting the stage for them to start a conflict and then run away to the Ukraine where it's safer. So yeah, all the pieces are being moved into place right now. You can see it every news story, you know, that comes out, like that fake shooting to be a last ditch attempt to get people to give up their guns. You know, nobody's fooled by that, but you can see it's a desperate attempt.
People are fooled by it. That's the crazy thing. That was one of the most poorly done hoax events that I've ever been able to look at. And there may have been some when I was really young and unaware that I didn't see, but in recent times. And I've talked to regular people, the Muggles, as you said, who are just like me, just like you, but before we woke up. That's why I guess saying anything negative about them is bad. It's best just to try to help. But yeah, they swear that's real. Argued with people. I mean, I don't argue with people, but I've had some conversations and they're just backing away from me. Crazy redhead with another story.
How can I argue with you know, this black man having a white hand when he shoots,
He
shoots
said
the
he
gun.
had a skin condition which
Oh,
caused
okay.
him to be white and black. That one I might be okay with, but everything else about it was, I mean, no one could be standing over here with a gun pointed at me and I would just continue talking to you.
Yeah.
Like, Dave,
And
what do you think?
and how come he changed his shirt, you know, from
Right.
one shot to the next? You know, how come, and this is one I spotted, how come when he shoots the girl right next to the cameraman doesn't flinch? The camera, you see him next to the gun. Oops, done it again. He sees him next to the cameraman. The gun's right next to his head. He shoots. The cameraman doesn't even flinch, doesn't move. Right. The other point was the guy walked up, took his gun out, realized that the cameraman wasn't pointing at the girl. So the cameraman was looking at the scenery, and so he puts the gun away, waits for the cameraman to swing around to the reporter, then he fires. It's like, yes, you're supposed to wait until, so we've got two shots, you know, two camera angles on this. Yeah, it's staged, and you know, you point these out to them, and they can't deny these things.
Well, I've told people, look at the video. The girl isn't shot. She screams and then runs away. There's no blood. There's no penetration of bullets in her red and black clothing. Red and black clothing is another sort of key. They color code everything, but but she died later. Okay, when? Because there was no shots that hit her, no blood on the ground. Did the man with the gun chase her? Well, that didn't happen because the camera fell on the ground. When did the guy shoot the woman in white? Where's that? When do we, you know, I mean, I don't even know why we're even bothering. This thing is such a joke.
Killing, you know?
Yeah, it's
But,
funny to talk about this, but you know, there's an underlying part that's not funny at all because they think we're stupid. And to a large degree, we've acted like we are. We aren't using the intellect that we've been given to see through all of this, and we should have put a stop to it long ago. And I didn't. I just lived in the regular matrix and let all of this stuff wash over me and I believe 9/11 was real at first, you know, until I got a good look at it. But right away I thought, oh, this is not what they say. But of course I believed there were planes for quite a while until I said to myself, it's impossible, there's no planes.
Well, I've got to say, I mean, since I was there, I did see what looked like a plane flying low over the Statue of Liberty, fly, you know, across to Manhattan, and it disappeared behind the back of the building, and then we saw the explosion. So, you know, those people say there weren't planes. I saw something that looked like a plane. I can't deny it, you know.
Do you feel that what you saw could have been something other than a real plane, or are you pretty convinced that was a real plane?
Well, I can't rule out the idea it was something other than a plane because, you know, I know that, you know, the military have technology that we don't, you know, and the holographic technology is pretty convincing. You saw I don't know if you saw the city in the river in China.
I did.
That wasn't a mirage. There was no way that was a mirage. You know, it doesn't work like that. That was a test. That was a holographic test. I'm sure of it. So if they've got that technology, yeah, then I can't rule out that it was used on that day. But all I can say was I saw what looked like a plane. I heard plane engines in the sky, seemed to be coming from the plane. And you know, from my perspective, it looked like a plane hit the building. I didn't see the actual strike because it was from the wrong angle from me, you know, like that. But it looked like a plane hit it. That's all I can say.
But that doesn't, for anyone who's listening to this, necessitate that was a plane with passengers on it and all of that.
No.
I find that really impossible to believe. But I tend to be a no-planer, as I mentioned. But there's only a few people that I respect that have said they've seen planes, you now being one of them. But we all do know they're capable of pulling, like you said, in China. China, again, of course, with the Mirage City. I mean, why China of all places? Oh, well, it ties in nicely. I'm thinking that they might try to pull off some sort of, I don't know, fake second coming or fake alien invasion even, with some of this technology that they've got. I don't know to what end, aside from killing us. What do you think?
I think that that's one of the great possibilities, that they'll pull off a fake alien invasion, whether it's with saviors, because that's one of the scenarios, or with destroyers, okay, to unify the world. And I think that's why we've been given the flat Earth. I don't think it was an accident that it's come out now. It's been lying dormant for hundreds of years, and now it's like exploding into the consciousness. And I think if they want to try and pull off a fake alien invasion, well, I'm afraid now, if you've caught onto the flat Earth, you know there's no space. You know there can't be any aliens, so you're not going to be fooled by, you know, big ships in the sky and people saying, "Yeah, we're aliens from Zeta Reticula, you know, we're here, we're your friends." Well, no, you're not. There's no such thing as space. You guys are imposters. Who are you? You know, if you truly knew about the flat Earth, right, you're not going to be fooled by the fake aliens. You know,
Go
so,
turn your mic up a little bit. That's seeming sound
because yeah. Is this any better at all?
better now, but it's not you or it's not me. It's the Google Hangout. So I apologize to anybody who feels our sound's going crazy. We're doing the best we can with what we've got. Yeah, the fake alien invasion thing. But I did find some people who are flat earthers who believe that there's space and were angry at me for saying there's no space. You agree with the no space. Of course, I mean, there's the space above us. Whether or not there's a dome, there's that atmosphere that we've got. But what are your feelings on that? Have you met many people who are involved in the flat earth world who think there's space?
Not really, because what I see they do is they talk about the flat earth, and I say there's no space, and they kind of agree with me, but then they start talking about orbiting and things like that. When, well, I think they're just we've still got this whole mindset of space, because literally we've been brainwashed with it, you know, for all our lives, with all the science fiction and NASA. Even if we know NASA's lying, there's still got to be a part of us that still thinks, well, maybe one or two of their missions were okay, maybe, you know.
I have that problem sometimes with the ISS. I know it's not there. I know it's fake, and I know this is all. But then sometimes I think, well, they could have like some kind of spy plane up there that's masquerading as the ISS taking these pictures. And I'm like, well, that could be true, but that still makes the ISS not real. You know, you can watch the ISS live and see that the different cameras. Jeranism did a really good video on that, where there's a camera, I guess, on the front or the back of the ISS, and it's showing it whole different pictures of Earth. So I mean, it's so easily seen through by those with the eyes to see, and we all have those eyes to see. We've been given those eyes to see, but the way society is and the way that authority or the powers that be are, they've taken that away from us. They've taken away our rights and really our humanity, and we're told we're free. It's crazy.
It's crazy. But as I said, it was released to us at the right time. I think it was released to us when we needed to get it, and I think it's a chess move by the creator. You know, the adversary has had his own way for a long time, and you know, we're all believing in evolution. We're believing in, you know, the Big Bang, and we're believing in the ball Earth, and so he's had his way for a long time. But now with this, you know, released, it's a house of cards. If any one of these things fall, then the whole thing has to fall. Yeah, and the flat Earth is a masterstroke, I think, you know, because as soon as you really get it, then you have to acknowledge there's a creator. There can't be anything else, and then that just destroys everything. All this whole construct, it just falls. So I think it's a masterstroke by the creator.
Interesting that the creator has given this to us. I never really thought about it that way. I would think of different people like Eric Dubay and Matt Powerland initially that had come out with these things, and many other people. And it sort of was just lost in the internet with all of the things that are on there, and nobody was seeing it. And then Mark Sargent came out with his, as you mentioned, the Flat Earth clues, which were really easily digestible and pop culture-y kind of, quick to understand. And that woke a lot of people up in February. And then, but I don't want to second guess the creator, but hey, here we are, why not? Why would the creator, God, if you would like to call him that or her that or it that, the energy that is responsible for this, give us the flat earth or make us aware of it? Not all of us, only some of us. It's such a late date, if September is the date. I mean, we're in September right now at the filming of this particular chat. There's almost no way, because I talk to people on the street, just random people in grocery stores, and they're not ready. They're not even ready to deal with, that we never went to the moon. So how are they going to be ready? How are we going to get people ready in 20 days?
Yes, I know. Well, you know what? It could be that it isn't going to be in 20 days' time, because one of the things that is a possibility is that we don't know what date it is. We've just been told what date it is. Today. It's there's people who believe that we might have even lost 1,000 years. So we don't know what year it is. We don't know what if this is the right time. So perhaps it won't happen, and because it won't happen, then we've got plenty of time to have this exponential growth. Now, Rob Skiba, I don't know if you come across Rob Skiba.
Oh, I love him. I love him, and I want to have him on. So that's right. Definitely one of the many people I wanted to talk with. Yes,
I'd love to talk to him too, actually, because he was quite instrumental in me finding the creators as well. But he made the link between Roswell and the Dead Sea Scrolls, because they both happened on the same year. Okay, and it's like a chess game. Okay, Roswell was important because before Roswell, people didn't have the concept of aliens. Okay, there were UFOs, there were lights in the sky, but nobody had had this concept of alien beings, flying alien craft. Yeah. So what Roswell was a rebranding of the demons that have always been with us. Okay, these demons that have been throughout history have just been rebranded as aliens. So in preparation for the alien saviors or the alien invaders. Yeah. And at the same in the same year, the Dead Sea Scrolls are found, basically laying out the adversary's plans. So it's a game of chess, move, counter move. So I think the Flat Earth was a move in the chess game.
Well, I thank the creator for doing it, because it's filled me with a passion. Veganism was my passion prior to this, and before that, exposing hoaxes like 9/11, just waking people up. And I didn't even know why I wanted to wake people up, but I felt extremely motivated to do so. But the Flat Earth motivated me enough to actually start a YouTube channel just to be able to talk to the varying people whose videos helped wake me up. And figuring that just another person out there talking about this is going to help. It's what I can think of doing now. I guess if time changes, I'll think of doing other things, whatever comes to mind. But it's almost like it came to me, I don't know, it sounds crazy, okay? Like by divine inspiration, not really, but kind of. One day I'm a normal person, knowing about hoaxes and knowing about the government lying and trying to remove myself from the system as much as possible. And then the next day, I purposely didn't wake up and go, let's look at a Flat Earth video. I didn't even really, but one day something happened to me. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Something just ding, and all of a sudden you're looking at stuff that either you avoided before or you never even heard of before.
Yeah.
And maybe certain people are meant to wake up because they'll wake up others. And then it's what the 100th monkey, they say, it'll reach some sort of critical mass.
Yeah, well, I liken it to Truman Show. You've seen that film?
Yes.
Right. Well, a lot of people have heard me say this, but I'm going to say it again. In Truman's Dome, not everything exists. Okay, it's a subset of the real world. So there are loads of things on the edge of Truman's consciousness that don't exist in his dome, in his universe. That is until he decides to get into it. So he might have the idea that people can strap a kite to their back and fly around, you know, a hang glide. Okay, you might have seen it on television, read it in a book or whatever, but there's no hang gliding in his dome. Nobody's doing that. Yeah, until Truman decides to get interested in it. So then the director has to go off and create a hang gliding school, populate with actors who know how to teach hang gliding. You know, put a hang gliding shop in a part of town Truman doesn't usually go to. You know, maybe even reshape the land a bit and change the wind pattern so you can actually have a good hang gliding experience. So that when Truman wakes up, that part of his universe is expanded so he can have that experience. Okay, I think that's where we are. And, you know, we're playing this game that we're writing at the same time. And literally, you know, the flat earth was an idea that was on the edge of our consciousness as one possibility out of an infinite, you know, realm of possibilities. And, you know, maybe we've decided to have a look at it, and now that has become a reality. It's you know, as far as the quantum world's concerned, that's how it works, you know, the observer effect.
Yes, a double slit experiment. We're creating our own reality with our thoughts, and then it's spreading and reaching some level of critical mass, but not fast enough. Not fast enough. And I worry about things like what we're talking about, CERN. And I did a little thought experiment. I'm always doing little ones, not big ones, because I don't really have that's just not my thing. But I love watching other people's. But I used my cell phone just one day sitting in my bed, and I went to Google Earth, and already I'm going to Google Earth. So what kind of, I mean, you know, it's government controlled, and Google is owned by the Alphabet company now or something. It's kind of scary. But I went to Google Earth and entered into the search, CERN. And there's CERN. Okay, so I kind of looked around. Okay, and I'm fine. Then I entered into the search. You'll think I'm crazy. I entered into the search Armageddon. It went to CERN. I entered into the search 923 and 923:15. It went to CERN. I entered 924:15. It went to CERN. I entered in some random nothing that has nothing to do with any of this, and it went somewhere else, like, I don't know, Donald Duck. It went to Florida. I mean, so it wasn't just going to CERN back to back. It went to CERN for certain key words: Armageddon, 923:15, and 924:15. Now, did my mind create that? Or are the people who programmed Google Earth putting that in there just to play with our heads? Maybe.
Or you know, Google Earth is probably linked to Google searches, and maybe there's a lot of people who are searching for 923 and CERN to try and get a connection.
Maybe. But if it's tied to searches, then it wouldn't be able to take you to a spot, or maybe it will. I don't understand how those things work. That's a good explanation. But regardless of what the real explanation is, which is probably perfectly acceptable, still makes you say, whoa. You step back and you think, wow.
It's relevant to you, and that's what the important thing is. If it's relevant to you, then it's relevant.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think we have in store for us? We may have all of the horrible things happen that maybe we were discussing in Revelations, or we may have more time than we think, because no one knows the day, as the Bible says. Or maybe it's going to be 2016, and we still have more time. Is there anything we can do to stop it?
Well, if we actually go to the Bible and say, okay, let's see this in terms of the Bible, then I don't think we're ready for it yet, because we still have yet to see the mark of the beast. Yeah, the mark that will allow us to, will, you know, dictate whether we buy or sell. Okay, that's still to come. So unless you know, an event happens where everybody ends up getting chipped tomorrow, then, you know, that's goes against the whole Bible thing happening on the 23rd.
But does that mean specifically that it's on your body? Is that what the Bible says? Or could it just be our ID cards? Because
In your
our
right
credit
hand or
cards,
your forehead.
it has to be on your hand or your forehead. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
a little
right
broke
hand
up.
or your forehead. So unless that happens, then, you know, according to the Bible, it's not going to happen yet. So that's one strike against the biblical thing happening on that
Good.
day.
Yay.
But you know, certainly it looks like the financial markets already are being positioned to crash around that time, because I mean, all of financial markets have been propped up for years now. They've been propped up against all reason and logic, and held up for a particular event or a particular time. And this could be it, because we're seeing that everything seems to be collapsing at the same time. So I think there will be some event, some very significant event. How significant, I don't know. But I'm saying that something's going to happen. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things. It's almost like 2012. We know that, you know, there's part of us that says something's going to happen, and there's another part of us going, well, no, nothing's going to happen really. So who knows?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I actually go sometimes hour by hour on it, or sometimes day by day. I'll wake up one morning and think, oh, I can totally see what they're doing to us. I don't know how it's going to play out, but it's game over, people. And then the next day I'll wake up and I'll think everything's going to be okay, because we are essentially good, and we can somehow fight against this just by the virtue of being good and building more goodness and awakening more people as much as we can. So it's hour by hour some days, day by day other days.
Yeah. The other thing is, and Kent Hovind says this as well, you know what, if you're breaking laws, you know, saying that you help children, help old people across the road doesn't cut it, you know. Good works aren't going to do it if you're breaking the law. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I've got to say though, part of me is leaning more towards the worst case scenario, only because of all the other things that I've been finding out that I can't really talk about at the moment. The bigger lie, and it's caused me to, let's say, start to observe the Sabbath, for instance, and on Saturday, and you know, follow the laws of God, because I realize that, you know, as a human being, I've not been a very good one. You know, really, I'm not a good husband or father or son, or you know, I'm just, you know, according to what we're supposed to be doing, I'm a pretty poor human. And I've realized that it's time that I've tried to be a better one. So yeah. Sorry, you were going to say?
Oh, no, I can tell by your sincerity that you're not just saying that because you don't want hell on earth to break loose and you will suffer because of it. I think I can feel that you are pure in your thoughts on that, and you want to be that good man now that you're aware and awake, just for the sheer purpose of it's the right thing to do. I myself as well have not been the best person. My parents, as I mentioned, are both dead. I could have been I wasn't a horrible daughter, but I could have been a way better daughter, you know, and much kinder to just general people. And, you know, I have these regrets and doubts, and I feel guilty about all the normal, nothing crazy. I don't have a prison record. Not that necessarily having a prison record is bad, because a lot of people have been in jail for things that weren't true. But I've not done anything really horrible. But when you add up all the small things I've done, I, just like you, don't feel I've been the person that I'm meant to be, because I didn't follow the path the Creator has laid out. And there's a lot of people that are friends of mine on Facebook who are atheists. And they may be totally turned off by the way our conversation has gone right now. But the flat Earth has opened up the world of a creator to me. And I can't help but want to read the Bible. And it's not about really worshiping a creator for me. It's being what I'm supposed to be and giving what I'm supposed to give. How do you feel about the whole worship thing?
Worship, well, I see it more that, okay, to understand that we were put here for a reason. If we're created, we were created for a reason. And we were given a whole set of rules to say, okay, do this. This is how to live. Okay, the Creator, the one who made you and made all this, has said, this is how you live. So really, we kind of owe it to him to do as he says. And I when I started to feel like this, I was kind of denying it a bit, and I would say, well, I've not done anything bad, I've done good things. And then, like I said to you, well, if you're breaking the law, doing a good deed every day doesn't excuse it. And then I thought more, and I realized I've broken every single one of these commandments. Starting with thou shalt not kill. I remembered that when I was 18, I got an air rifle, and I was with a scope on it, and I was playing around with the scope, getting it absolutely perfect. And I was shooting all tin cans at the bottom of the garden, and it looked like I got it absolutely perfect. And I looked up and I saw a bird in a tree. And without even thinking, I aimed and shot this bird, and it fell, and it just fell dead. And I felt really crappy about it afterwards. But then I realized that, the Bible doesn't say thou shalt not kill humans. It just says thou shalt not kill. And I've killed, and I've stolen, I've taken things from work, and, I've done silly things. I've lied. I've been a crappy human, according to what my Creator has defined as what a good one is. So, I feel like my duty as a human is to turn away from this evil system and try and be the best human I can be.
I agree with you completely, and I also take it even further than killing the bird. I've never done that, but I've killed innumerable animals simply by before I became vegan, going into a restaurant and ordering them to eat. I won't blame myself for what I ate when I was a child, because I didn't really have the wherewithal to consider my actions. But I do remember being quite young, and goes back to a bird like you mentioned. I was outside playing. I remember those days so fondly when I was outside playing. I mean, so innocent and fun. And there was a bird's nest that was on the ground under a tree, and I was by myself. And I walked over to the bird's nest, and there was an egg that was cracked. And I didn't really understand that the whole thing about how eggs work and birds, and I knew that would be a baby bird somehow. And I immediately started crying. And I know I didn't kill that bird, but I was crying for the life the bird could have had. And it was just such a deep emotional moment for me. I buried it and just felt really bad about it for a very long period of time. But probably dinner that night, I ate chicken. I didn't make the connection. But as an adult, eventually anyway, after being vegetarian for a long time, I eventually went vegan. And I feel that it's the best way to be, because I'm not killing. And I put my health on that scale as secondary. But it's the killing thing. And I've done all the bad things you said: coveted, stolen, lied, and I don't know what the rest of them are, but I know I've covered them all multiple times. But I've really taken a huge step toward doing the right thing, and I think everybody in the flat Earth world is doing the same thing, or at least I hope so.
Yeah, me too. I think that's me done actually, because it's like 5 o'clock in the morning here.
Oh no, I was just going to wrap things up. All right. Well, thank you for talking with me. I've really, really enjoyed it, and
Right.
it's been great actually. And we've been talking with allegedly Dave. D Murphy 25 is his YouTube channel, and he's got a book called The Human Body Owner's Manual Workshop. And
Owner's Workshop Manual.
oh, sorry, Owner's Workshop Manual. Sorry about that. And where can somebody get that book?
You can actually get it from lulu.com. You can also get it from Amazon, but I wouldn't get it from Amazon. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so lulu.com, lulu.com.
All right, wonderful. I've actually ordered my copy, and it won't come till tomorrow, but I'm going to be reading it. And I appreciate you at the different time zone you are in Turkey talking with me this long. I just could probably talk to you forever, and I know those who are listening could probably hear you talk forever. So we will all go enjoy your videos, and I definitely want to at some point know the other biggest secret that you can't really talk about right now, and I think we're all intrigued by that. So once again, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Patricia. It was great.
All right. Well, okay, that concludes Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes number 5. I'm Patricia Steere, and this has been a wonderful show. I've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it. And the best thing that any of us can do is look into your heart, look into your stomach, where we found out today that's where a lot of things come from, and just do your best to try to be good and kind to others and to yourself. Thank you.